Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Greetings and a very good morning to Honorable Tuan Haji Murshid bin Qasim, Dean of Center for Foundation Studies, IIUM, distinguished guests and speakers, Assistant Professor Dr. Nurjanah binti Hassan from Centris and KRKHS, IIUM Gombak, Associate Professor Dr. Badri Najib Zubir from IIUM Academy and KIRKHS Gombak, Associate Professor Dr. Abdul Razak Abdullahi Hashi from Centris, Kuliah of Science, IIUM Kuantan, Deputy Deans, panelists, fellow presenters, and members of the online viewers. Let us begin our colloquium today with the recitation of Furqan Al-Fatiha. My name is Muhammad Zakwan bin Muhammad Izam, and inshallah I will be your MC for today's event. First and foremost, I would like to welcome all of you to today's CFS Colloquium on Islamization of Human Knowledge, Sharing Practices 2021. And Alhamdulillah, despite the ongoing effects of the pandemic, the lockdown, we are still able to gather here today for such a promising event, Alhamdulillah. My dear brothers and sisters, please be ready since we are about to sing the national anthem, Negaraku, the IIUM song, and followed by Asma'ul Husna.
Let's lead the way, enlighten the future, share the wisdom to the spirit of Islam. Revelation and reason, we shall excel, we shall prevail. Merging faith and knowledge, we the Khalifa, we will fulfill the Amanah. Together, we make the world a better place. Forever, expand the culture of Iqra.
Inilah ayat penyesalan orang-orang yang telah mati bertemu dengan Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala untuk ditanggung.
نسألك يا من هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر الخالق البارئ المصور الغفار القهار الوهاب الرزاق الفتاح العليم القابض الباسط الخافض الرافع المعز المذل السميع البصير الحكم اللطيف الخبير الحليم العظيم الغفور الشكور العلي الكبير الحفيظ المقيم الحسيب الجليل الكريم الرقيب المجيب الواسع الحكيم الودود المجيد الباعث الشهيد الحق الوكيل القوي المتين الولي الحميد المحسن المبدع المعين المحيي المميت الحي القيوم الواجد الماجد الواحد الصمد القادر المقتدر المقدم المؤخر الأول الآخر الظاهر الباطن الوالي المتعالي البار التواب المنتقم العفو الرؤوف مالك الملك ذو الجلال والإكرام المقسط الجامع الغني المغني المانع الضار النافع النور الهادي البديع الباقي الوارث الرشيد الصبور الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير اللهم صل أفضل الصلاة على أسعد المخلوقات كسيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم عدد معلوماتك ومداد كلماتك كلما ذكرك ذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون.
Brothers and sisters, before we proceed further, let us now begin our gatherings of knowledge today with the recitation of dua that will be led by Ustaz Muhammad Mahfuz Saufi bin Abdul Wafur, Assistant Religious Officer, CFS IIUM. فليتفضل مشكورا.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Hamdan yuwafi ni'amahu wa yukafi'u mazidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhika wa 'azimi sultanik. Allahumma inna nas'aluka salamatan fid din wa 'afiyatan fil jasad wa ziyadatan fi 'ilmi wa barakatan fi rizq wa taubatan qabla al-maut wa rahmatan 'inda al-maut wa maghfiratan ba'da al-maut. اللهم حون علينا في سكرات الموت والنجاة من النار والعفو إلى الحساب. اللهم إنا نسألك رضاك والجنة ونعوذ بك من سخطك والنار. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا وعن والدينا وعن جميع المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you, Ustaz Mahfuz, for the recitation of Dua just now. Now, without ado, I would like to welcome Tuan Haji Murshid bin Qasim, Dean of CFS IIUM, to give an opening speech and remarks. Now, فلتفضل مأجورا.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Zakwan. A'udzubillahi sami'il alim minasyaitonir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wa bihi nasta'in ala umurid dunya waddin. Usalli wa sallim ala sayyidina Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah al-aliyyil azim. Our distinguished guest speakers, Associate Professor Dr. Nur Jannah binti Hassan from Centris and KIR KHS IUM Gombak, Associate Professor Dr. Badri Najib Zubir from IUM Academy and KIR KHS IUM Gombak, Associate Professor Dr. Abdul Razak Abdullahi Hashi from Centris Kuliah of Science IUM Kuantan, Deputy Deans, Heads of Departments, respected colleagues, papers, presenters, participants, brothers and sisters, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First and foremost, I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting and giving me opportunity to deliver a few words in this opening remarks in conjunction with CFS Colloquium on Islamisation of Human Knowledge, Sharing Practices, and let us together express our gratitude to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for His constant blessing and favors. We are able to participate in this event today, fully on the online and remote mode, inshallah. A special congratulations to all participants for making yourself available for the program virtually despite your busy schedule. And Alhamdulillah and congratulations to all as well, especially the academic staff of the center for successfully completed our classes for semester 3 last week, fully on the RTL mode without having any major issue. Your contribution and perseverance is very much appreciated, and jazakumullahu khairan katsira. As yearly routines, for your information, the center is now in the midst of planning and preparing for registration and admission of new students for intake 2021-2022. Inshallah, they'll be joining in this coming August. And let us pray for the situation to improve very soon, and may Allah is. My dear brothers and sisters, according to IUM policies and guidelines on Islamization, the term Islamization refers to the process of actualizing the divine imperative of human development based upon the Islamic worldview and its philosophy of knowledge and education, which is the soul of this university. Ever since the establishment of IUM, Islamization has become an important mission, foundation of all IUM strategic pillars. And as such, all strategic plans and future developments of the university shall be in conformity with it. This mission is firmly expressed in various ways in the university's constitution. For instance, in Article 5(1)(c) stipulates that the university's endeavor, which is to promote the concept of Islamization of human knowledge in teaching, research, consultancy, disseminations of knowledge, and development of academic excellence in the university. The concept of Islamizations in IUM is comprehensive and holistic in both scope and meaning, covering both academic and non-academic affairs, involving university governance, campus administration, financial and asset management, environmental well-being, human resource development, student life and character development, co-curricular activities, and business enterprises. The supreme importance of the concept of Islamizations of human knowledge has prompted the IOHK committee of CFS to organize this event. It is hoped that this humble initiative could assist the university in implementing and fulfilling its mission. This colloquium, among others, seeks to achieve the following objective, namely, first, to provide an avenue for academic staff to learn, share, and exchange views on IOHK. Second, to expose the staff with various practices and an example of IOHK practices in CFS IUM. And thirdly, to introduce to the staff with the latest practices and policies regarding the implementations of IOHK in IUM. The presence of our distinguished speakers today are very timely. Their renowned credential and expertise could guide our academic staff, especially the new ones, in understanding, planning, and materializing their Islamizations program and projects at their respective departments in a more systematic and integrated way, inshallah. Brothers and sisters, as academics, we have also been reminded about the university's vision toward humanizing education near in the future. The academic staff need to understand that the future scenario requires substantial different skills than what we have today. The academics, along with the top management, need to prepare strategically to thrive in the anticipated challenges. This includes training to reskilling and upskilling the existing workforce in order to keep up with the current Sejahtera academic framework or SAF as a way of preparing our staff and students toward producing a holistic insan sejahtera, which is in line with the principles of Al-Quran and Sunnah. I'm confident that your participation in this colloquium today will be an inspiring experience for everyone. Finally, I wish that all participants would have a pleasant discussion and dynamic interactions with our respected speakers. My sincere congratulations to the organizing committee for their hard work in ensuring the success of this conference for the benefit of all academic staff in the center. On that note, brothers and sisters, by virtue of the lafaz Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I hereby officiate the opening of CFS Colloquium on Islamizations of Human Knowledge Sharing Practices. With that, Aqulu qawli hadza astaghfirullah li wa lakum. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Right. Thank you to Haji Murshid bin Qasim for the opening speech. Brothers and sisters, now we are going to start the first session, which is the grand talk on Islamization of human knowledge in the Sejahtera academic framework. Alhamdulillah, we are very blessed today to have Assistant Professor Dr. Nurjannah binti Hassan as our first speaker. Now allow me to introduce a bit of her background. Our speaker today is an assistant professor in Department of Fundamental and Interdisciplinary Studies, Colloquium of Islamic Liberal Knowledge and Human Sciences. She's a seasoned educator with years of experience in teaching, especially in mathematics and science, and in planning and administrating educational endeavors. She also teaches Islamic worldviews, knowledge and civilization, Islamic ethics, critical thinking, and many more. So without further delay, I would like to welcome our distinguished speaker, Assistant Professor Dr. Nurjannah binti Hassan from Centris and Colloquium of Islamic Liberal Knowledge, IIUM, to share her insights on the mentioned topic, inshallah. فلتفضل مشكورا.
Thank you very much, Brother MC. I'm sorry I didn't get your name. Oh, Brother Zakwan. Thank you very much, Brother Zakwan. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. Allahumma aftah alayna hikmataka wanshur alayna min khazaini rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Honorable Dean of CFS, Brother Murshid Qasim, the Deputy Deans, HODs, fellow presenters, Associate Professor Dr. Badri, and Associate Professor Dr. Abdul Razak Hashi, my dear colleagues, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I am speaking from my home. So before anything, I would like to apologize if sometimes you would hear loud motorbikes passing or loud buses passing because I live just next to the street. All right, in the beginning, I actually feel humbled for this opportunity to be speaking to you, especially so that my fellow presenters are much more senior than I am in terms of their years and in IIUM as well as their academic works. I am very old in my age, but in terms of my appointment with IIUM, I am, I think, very new. All right, so I'm going to share right now my screen. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I hope you are able to see it now. Okay. All right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The title given to me for this CFS colloquium on IOHK sharing practices is IOHK in SAF. All right. This is quite a challenging topic for me because, as you know, SAF, Sejahtera Academic Framework, is very new. So I hope I will be able to deliver justice to the topic on IOHK in SAF. And I approach this topic with full insaf, yeah? Insaf and with full insaf. I hope I will be able to deliver justice to the topic. If not, I seek your forbearance for my weakness, inshallah. All right, to begin with, this is how I'm going to organize my presentation. I hope you can see my presentation. Brother Zakwan, is it clear that you can see my presentation? I guess so.
Yes, it's clear.
All right, okay. All right, so we are going to, because IOHK, the topic is IOHK in SAF, so we are going to be looking at the Sejahtera academic framework as a broad sphere of our talk today. And then I will go into Islamization of human knowledge and sharing a little bit of experience that I have, inshallah. All right. As we know, but before that, as we know, Islamization is very broad, as our dean has mentioned just now. And I would like to remind ourselves that Islamization has two broad categories. Number one is Islamization of the self, and the other one is Islamization of human knowledge. Actually, prior to that, the demarcation is academic as well as non-academic. Islamization of the self falls under the non-academic category of Islamization, and Islamization of human knowledge falls under the academic category. Whatever the case may be, when we talk about Islamization, we have to start with Islamization of the self. And when we talk about Sejahtera academic framework, very much so this fits in, because the Sejahtera academic framework, SAF, some things on the screen here is preventing me from looking at my slide clearly, so I have to move it aside. Sorry about that. All right. So the Sejahtera academic framework, which is abbreviated as SAF, and on the title of the book, here it is Humanizing Education for Rahmatan lil Alameen Post-COVID-19 Disruption. We are still in COVID-19, so I suppose this is a long-term planning that the university has to prepare ourselves for what may come in the future. Now, we have to go back to this phrase of humanizing education for Rahmatan lil Alameen, because this expression or this phrase is very important that it is on the cover of the book. So what does it mean by humanizing education? What does it mean by humanism? People may think that humanism is secular humanism or humanism of secularism, in Arabic, insaniyat al-mamiyah. But in the context, in our context, in the context of IIUM, it cannot be. And it must be the humanism of Islam, insaniyat al-Islam. We have to make that demarcation clear, because insaniyat al-Islam or humanism of Islam is like heaven and earth with the humanism of secularism, which is not the way that we want to go. And I would like to emphasize on this, that we are all very clear in it. Because humanism of secularism engage religion and engage the concept of God into a very small sphere that doesn't have any relevance, that doesn't have any impact or relevance or meaning to our life in this world. But when we talk about humanism in Islam, the core of this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is Tawheed. So it is a huge gap between this humanism of secularism and humanism of Islam. And I hope that we are all clear in this. Now, the second expression is Rahmatan lil Alameen. Rahmatan lil Alameen, or mercy to all the worlds. This must be based on the maqasid al-Sharia. Why so? Because the content of the Sharia is a manifestation of Allah's mercy, Allah's rahmah to all the worlds. So when we want to talk about rahmatan lil alamin, whatever that we do must be in line with the maqasid al-sharia. All right, and when we talk about being in line with the maqasid al-sharia, then inside that we must always remember amar ma'ruf nahi munkar, which is a manifestation of this rahmatan lil alamin. Because of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us and to all the worlds, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enjoined upon us or decree upon us the responsibility of enjoining good and forbidding evil. Amar ma'ruf, nahi munkar. And when we talk about Islamization, and in this topic, although there is IOHK, and then there is SAF, and then there is sharing of experience, of course, everything would be interrelated. So I will be going back and forth even before touching on Islamization. I hope you don't mind. All right. So Amar Ma'ruf Nahi Munkar is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed upon us. And this is very much so part of Islamization. Now, the third very important expression here is sejahtera. What do we mean by sejahtera? And when we talk about sejahtera, sejahtera could be the environment that is sejahtera, the person that is sejahtera, the insan sejahtera. And when we talk about insan sejahtera in the Tawhidic concept, in the Tawhidic framework, in the framework of the Quranic worldview, in the framework of IIUM, it has to be insan salih. Why do we have to talk about insan salih? Because this concept of sejahtera comes from the national philosophy of education, which is for people of formulations of all different races as well as different religions, and therefore it is general. But in terms of us Muslims and in terms of IIUM, we have to specify it to be under the context or within the context of Islam. So insan sejahtera in this case, in the case of IIUM, is insan salih. We will be talking more about insan salih later, inshallah. So that, inshallah, this concept of sejahtera will bring al-falah, or prosperity, felicity in this world, as well as extending to al-falah in the akhirah, versus al-khusran, a state of being lost. And we want to nurture muflihun, those who prosper, instead of al-khasirun, those who are losers. All right. I would like to, okay, all right. So when we talk about this insan saleh, this thing here is bothering me. I have to hide it. Don't know where to hide it. All right. When we talk about this insan sejahtera, or this humanism of Islam, of course we talk about the human. And I cannot talk about this very, very lengthy because we have only limited time, but you can study this slide further, inshallah. But let me just briefly go through it. When we talk about the human, we have our earthly body, for which a lot of attention has been given in our contemporary education scenario, as well as in whatever other else affairs that we have in this world. We pay much attention to our earthly body, for which upon our death, it would perish away. However, what makes us human is not really our earthly body, which is very, very similar in genetic makeup with even pigs, more so than apes. What makes us human is our heavenly spirit, our ruh. The ruh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blew into Adam alayhi salam, wa nafakhtu fihi min ruhi, and for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blew into the developing fetus in our mother's womb, as we were developing in our mother's womb at about 4 months gestational period, wa nafakha fihi min ruhihi. This ruh lives on beyond our physical death. And this ruh is what differentiates between the humanism of secularism and humanism of Islam. All right? And this ruh is one of the components of the spiritual heart, which comprise of the ruh, spirit, the nafs, soul, the aqal, the intelligence, and the qalb itself, the heart. Right? So if we refer to Al-Ghazali's discourse, then we know the importance of this spiritual heart because it is the seat of knowledge where data is processed and we get knowledge, and it is likened to a mirror. And with that, the importance of our senses too. I don't have much time to dwell on this, but whatever is the case, I wish we can have more opportunity maybe in the future to talk about this. But with constant spiritual discipline and tazkiyatun nafs, we can bring our nafsul ammarah bisu, that's the lowest level of our nafs. And because our nafs is so interrelated in an organic, holistic situation with ruh, aqal, and qalb, therefore we talk about the self, yet tazkiyatun nafs, the purification of the self. And because the ruh, the spiritual entity, cannot be separated from our physical body, because otherwise we will be dead, then therefore tazkiyatun nafs also includes spiritual discipline of the physical body, the physical senses. All right, so with this tazkiyatun nafs, the spiritual discipline, well-balanced holistic environment, and the way that we upbring ourselves, so we can develop from being a very animalistic type of nafs to nafsul lawama, self-reproaching soul, to nafsul mutma'inna, whereby we would have achieved insan rabbaniya. And before that, we would have achieved insan salih. Insan salih is the person who is well-balanced, holistic, based on tawheed, and have this tawheedic outlook, khashiyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, high level of iman, etc., etc. And this is the person, inshallah, that would be promised with al-falah and on the way to being a godly person or insan rabbani. I have to move on. All right. Now we go to Saf, right? You can access the booklet or the book on Saf through this link here, and I have given my presentation to the Secretariat, and you can have a copy of it. And again, we have to remember that we are talking about insaniyah in Islam, or humanism in Islam, whereby the spiritual entity, the ruh, the nafs, the aqal, the qalb is central. And when we talk about this, we have to remember our two raison d'être, our two reasons for being, which is to be slave servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his Khalifa on earth. So whenever we talk about this humanizing education, it cannot run away from these facts. All right. So SAF, in this context, in the context of IIUM, in the context that we have discussed just now, looks at the whole spectrum of curriculum at IIUM, and it forces each relevant body in the entire ecosystem of IIUM to function with deliberate conscience, with deliberate being conscious deliberately on IIUM's philosophy, vision, and mission. Cannot take them for granted. We have to function in IIUM being deliberately conscious about IIUM's philosophy, vision, and mission as our criterion to whatever that we do in this beloved university of ours, bringing this philosophy, vision, and mission, which is our legacy, our living legacy, bringing them to their relevance of today. Coloring this legacy that we have, IIUM's philosophy, vision, and mission, with a new breath in terms of bringing them to relevance of the context of today. Doesn't mean that our philosophy, our vision, and mission doesn't have any relevance. It is living, therefore it is relevant, but to make sure that we are conscious about that, because in the way, perhaps we will lose sight of our philosophy, vision, and mission. So we are constantly reminded of our philosophy, vision, and mission, so that our whatever that we do, our intention as well as our actions in IIUM in terms of our teaching and learning, research, consultancy, whatever, student developments, etc., will always be in line with IIUM philosophy, vision, and mission. This is the spirit of this Sejahtera academic framework. And this Sejahtera academic framework empowers academics, administrative staff, students, and support staff for the above. And this this situation requires inter, cross, and especially transdisciplinary way of looking at things to nurture with a strong foundation of aqidah, sharia, and akhlaq. All right, so you can look at the philosophy of IIUM. I do not have much time to dwell on this, but we have to remember that this philosophy actually reminds us that this philosophy of the university is built upon the belief that knowledge must be pursued as an ibadah and amanah, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put on our shoulder, and the knowledge thus pursued should lead us towards recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the absolute creator, cherisher, and sustainer, and that He is Rabb al-Alamin. So the highest level of knowledge is coming to this acknowledgement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, coming to ma'rifah. And therefore, whatever knowledge that we churn up, whatever knowledge that we impart on our students must bring them to this towards this hierarchy, towards this apex of knowledge, which is knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, acknowledging Him as the absolute creator, cherisher, sustainer, and Rabb al-Alamin, the Lord of the worlds. And if the knowledge that we impart on our students, it doesn't matter what knowledge, Islamic studies, fiqh, usul fiqh, medicine, sociology, history, natural sciences, medicine, all of this, even linguistics, must bring our students into this acknowledgement, to this hierarchy of knowledge with the apex of Ma'rifatullah. And this philosophy is based, as all of you know, on Surah Al-Alaq, the first 5 verses, but I would stress that it goes beyond the first 5 verses to verses number 7, 8, and 9. And we would like us all to reflect on this. I do not have much time because my time is really running and I'm trying to keep time. But please reflect on the meaning of these few verses in Surah Al-Alaq. But what I want to stress on is, we have to pursue knowledge in the name of God and not in the name of anything, definitely not in the name of our own desire. Because He is the one who has created us, and we have to know that we, how lowly we are from a germ cell that doesn't have much worth, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always, generous. He's the most generous in giving us all that we need and more, in terms of all of the provisions which are actually ayat or signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within ourselves, in the furthest regions of the earth, in nature, in the animals, plants, in the environment, in human history, in human society, or whatever. Whatever that we see in our life, whatever that we experience in our life, these are all ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He is the one who taught us. And taught us the use of all these tools of knowledge, and He taught us what we would have not known. And the next verses remind us, Kalla innal insana la yatgha, verily human beings are ungrateful. We always exceed the boundaries in that we think that we are self-sufficient. And remember that we have to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Kalla innal insana la yatgha an ra'ahu istaghna inna ila rabbika ruj'a. So our knowledge endeavor must be in full spirit of these few verses of the Quran. And that our philosophy also stresses that revealed knowledge is key, and human knowledge, i.e. human reason, is actually complementary to this revelation. And if we pursue knowledge without referring to this revelation, then we will be astray, and the knowledge that we churn out will mislead. as we have seen in the crisis of the world today, because knowledge has been pursued in disregard of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the creator, who is the Lord, cherisher of the world. And this is very, very important, and we must instill this in all of us as well as in our students. All right, we move further. So this is the vision of the university, and I know you are all very familiar with it. So just remember this, and I will not be going through this. And these are the 7 mission statements of IIUM, and you can, go through that later, inshallah, or maybe you are already very much well versed in this. We have to always remember. I do not have time to dwell in this, so I will go further, inshallah. All right, when we look at SAF, SAF nurtures learners to understand and function well in their relations with the Creator, with other human beings, and with their immediate and extended global environments. In the Quran, we have this hablum min Allah, and this one hablum minan nas. And when we talk about with other human beings, we don't even talk only with other human beings, we talk about with ourselves also. A lot of us, a lot of people out there, we have become detached to our spiritual entity or to our spirit. And therefore we have to be having this close relationship with the spirit of, with our ruh, so that when we talk about hablum min Allah and hablum minan nas, not just our relationship with other human beings, but also within ourselves. And the third one, with the immediate and extended global environments, we can say hablum min al-kawn. The expression hablum min al-kawn is not in the Quran, but we can coin that as an extrapolation of hablum min Allah and hablum min nas, because we are being sent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. This earth is our immediate environment, and we cannot survive without it. So we have this intimacy with the environment, and therefore we have these 3 relationships. So our learners could be our students, our colleagues, as well as the support staff of IIUM, the administrators of IIUM, to be capable to sift through the many scenarios and ideologies. We are being inundated by many different scenarios and ideologies that keep on changing, and the attrition, the rate of the changes are so rapid that we now, the humanity today is at lost. We are confused. So therefore, the importance of our philosophy, vision, and mission, and SAF brings that legacy alive, the legacy which is living. SAF brings it to the relevance of today, which is this challenging world that we have today. So the curriculum of IIUM, by curriculum we mean the academic as well as the non-academic, will be making our learners, or nurturing our learners to be capable to sift through. Yes?
I think the slide is not moving.
The slide is not moving?
Yeah, as in it's the same slide from the beginning.
Oh, really? My slide is moving right here, but over there it is not moving?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure how to resolve this. Perhaps the Secretariat can share the link to my slides, and they can refer to the slides on their phone, perhaps.
Okay, sure.
Yes,
I cannot resolve that, so please, Secretariat, please resolve that one, yeah? Because it is moving very well on my side. All right, so as I was saying, the SAF, or the which ensures our philosophy, vision, and mission, we are compelled to, as staff of IIUM, we are compelled to nurture our learners to understand their function well in relation to hablum min Allah, hablum minan nas, which is their relationship within themselves as well as with other human beings, and hablum min al-kawn, with our immediate and extended global environments, if not the universe, all right? To be able to sift through the many scenarios and ideologies inundating the contemporary world and offer viable alternatives and pragmatic solutions to the complex issues of the world today. And SAF's overarching principle is the belief in the potential of the human being and putting people first. And when we talk about the potential of human being, we are talking about this potential that comes with the ruh that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blown into us, this spiritual entity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blown into us, and putting people first. When we talk about people first, we talk about this humanity in Islam, right? Looking at people, concentrating and not forgetting about their spirit, because what makes human is our spirit. What makes us human is our spirit. All right, I move on now to the next slide, where we want to look at education at IIUM. It must be based on Islamic philosophy of knowledge and education. It must be grounded on the worldview of the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it must be grounded on the unity of knowledge, whereby revealed knowledge is the most important and central. As a matter of fact, revealed knowledge is the core of all the other knowledge that humankind attain through our intellectual faculty. So the education at IIUM assists the seeker in his or her vocation as slave servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ibadullah, as well as Khalifa of Allah on earth, and that we holistically nurture all of our ward, all of our the people that we are responsible to nurture in light of Islamic Aqidah, Sharia, and Akhlaq, so that we produce graduates. When we talk about graduates, it could be our student who graduates, or whoever that learn with us, who finish their learning with us, graduates who become not only knowledgeable and skillful professionals, but also committed with a high level of taqwa, Islamic adab, Islamic morality and ethics, Islamic akhlaq, ready in the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, we are producing tawhidic insan sejahtera, or insan saleh. And with that, inshallah, they are on their way to achieve al-falah. And this
Excuse me.
yes.
Would you please stop sharing your slide and then reshare the slide?
I would have to stop sharing and then I would have to reshare the slide.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just stop sharing the slide first, and then
Okay.
try to.
I have stopped sharing, and now I would share it again, inshallah. This time, I hope it will work. Does it work?
Okay, it's working. Currently, it's the slide on Tauhidic Insan Sejahtera.
Right. On my screen, there's a green tab that shows you are screen sharing and then stop. Okay, never mind. Okay, so let me continue. And we all know that this is an amanah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we have to, this amanah includes our responsibility to restore the primary of Islam in all fields of knowledge and offer this viable, sound alternative to the Western secular model. Now I'm going to proceed. Does it go to another slide now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Alhamdulillah. All right. So when we talk about SAF grounds us deep into IIUM's philosophical premises, vision, and mission. And with IIUM's rich legacy, SAF thrusts us all forward into the complexities, challenges, and opportunities of the world today. Doesn't mean that our legacy is not capable of doing that, but SAF brings it with a new breath, to bring it into this complexities, challenges, and opportunities of the world today, which is very much different from the time that IIUM was established before. But that doesn't mean that our philosophical premises, our vision and mission are outdated. No, they are alive. Our legacy is alive, and SAF helps us to be conscious of this legacy and thrust us forward with the message of Rahmatan lil Alameen. All right. Is the slide forwarding?
Yes.
Okay, good, alhamdulillah. And when we talk about these human beings in IIUM, this our colleagues or our students or our staff members that we are nurturing, ourselves also, we are trying to build what is being exemplified by Surah Ibrahim verses 24 to 25. This is kalimatan tayyibatan kashajaratin tayyibatin. We have this goodly tree with this firm aqidah and a very strong observance of the Sharia, and therefore we have this canopy of akhlaq, which then deliver rahmatan lil alameen, mercy to all the worlds. And this example of this shajarah tayyiba is very much pertinent, because if we learned biology, we know that this tree, this huge tree, is bringing a lot of benefits to many different species, right? I do not have time to dwell into this, but I'm sure you are aware, even at the root system, it's able to be habitat of many different species. On the trunk, on the canopy, and giving fruits and giving oxygen and taking in pollution and carbon dioxide, etc., etc. Right? So we are trying to nurture this insan sejahtera with such characteristics, deeply rooted in our aqidah, a strong observation of our sharia, and our akhlaq would then will be able to make us capable of upholding this mission of rahmatan lil alameen. All right. So that we live to our motto or our tagline, which is IIUM as a garden of knowledge and virtue, so that more and more and more of this shajara tayyibah would be growing very healthy in IIUM, as well as sending our seedlings to wherever they would be going throughout the world, and each one of them would be a shajara tayyibah wherever they may be in this world, and hopefully, inshallah, they themselves can develop into a garden of knowledge and virtue by their own right, with the foundation that IIUM has given us. Now we go to IOHK. Now, basic knowledge, division, and hierarchy, this is a must know for everybody. We have to understand that the supreme authority of the divine intellect of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the divine intellect, makes the divine revealed knowledge and sciences, revelation, as supreme. And they are not at par with rationally acquired knowledge and sciences, which is dependent on human intellect. So human intellect is actually dependent upon the divine revelation, is subservient to divine revelation. So therefore, the knowledge division is that we have divinely revealed knowledge and we have rationally acquired knowledge. And the hierarchy is clear. The divine revealed knowledge, IRK, IRKS, Islamic revealed knowledge or sciences. Yeah, this one is the core as well as the higher up, the higher in hierarchy, and Quran and Sunnah is the highest. And we have this acquired human knowledge, which is below that hierarchy, and our endeavor on rationally acquired knowledge must be guided by revelation. This is the basic knowledge division and hierarchy, and we look at knowledge division and pursuit in Islamic legacy, whereby knowledge is united, the unity of knowledge. How so? Because as we mentioned just now, the Quran and Sunnah becomes the core. Revelation is the core and the foundation guiding and shaping the Tawhidic mind. People in the past, they all memorized the Quran, they all understood the Quran, they all practiced the Quran, and therefore their knowledge acquisition as well as knowledge propagation is actually based on this core. And in so doing, man is liberated from false servitude. And our rationally acquired sciences are propagated or acquired through the spirit of Ubudiyah and Khilafah. The divine intellect is absolute, and human intellect is shaped by and subservient to the divine intellect. So this is our legacy, whereby we have this unity of knowledge. But ever since the modern period, we have the schism, the split between religion and sciences, all right? Whereby we have the revealed knowledge being confined to its very small capsule with little relevance to earthly life with our affairs in this world. And the rationally acquired knowledge is based on the supreme mind, supreme quote unquote, the supreme mind, which is assuming its supremacy, but it's actually false supremacy. And at best, it's parallel. They exist in parallel at best. At worst, one doesn't have anything to do with the other. And today, most of our institutions have it parallel at best. But of course, IIUM cannot just have it parallel. We have to live back our legacy, which is the unity of knowledge. So how do we bring these two together? We have to have integration. We have to have Islamization of human knowledge. Human knowledge here, we have to have Islamization, IOHK, and we have to have relevantization or making the Islamic revealed knowledge, or not making, but bringing the Islamic revealed knowledge to contemporary relevance through integration, through relevantization, as well as through Islamization of human knowledge, so that this unity of knowledge can be re-established, right? Whereby the revelation will be brought back as the core and foundation, as the guidance and criterion, and the divine intellect as absolute and human intellect is subservient, as well as we must seek guidance from revelation, all right? So the rationally acquired knowledge, we must bring back the core of Tawhid in there. All right, now how do we do this? How do we integrate this? Integration is one of the several ways of inter, cross, and transdisciplinary, as well as integration is also one of the several ways of Islamization. So how do we do this? And in the few minutes that I have, I would like you to imagine chicken soup, right? When we want to put chicken soup, do we just put things together? The chicken as a whole, together with the head and the feather and the innards and the guts and the najis inside the intestine, and the onions together with the skin and the roots and the roots of here, and the carrots together with this poisonous top here, and the potatoes with the poisonous butts here? Of course not, right? Of course not. And from here, to come to this delicious chicken soup, we have to do a lot of processes. We have to clean the chicken. We have to clean all of the other ingredients. We have to chop them up carefully, and then we have to follow a certain recipe to come up with this delicious chicken soup. And therefore, similarly, with integration, right? One of the examples of integration is this three-step methodology. Three-step methodology. We cannot just put things together, take conventional sciences, take conventional disciplines, and then copy paste verses of the Quran. There we have integration. We cannot do that because the human knowledge because it has been devoid from this core of Tawheed for so long, ever since the modern period, and the contemporary knowledge, the conventional ones, are still maintaining that status quo since about 300 years ago. We cannot just take that body of knowledge filled with its secularistic and atheistic presuppositions and then just cut and paste verses of the Quran. Like that chicken soup that we put all of the ingredients together without even cleaning them. It doesn't work that way, right? So this example of three-step methodology is actually what we, now I'm going into my experience, what we took, what we developed actually when we did our project, Prof. Kamal Hassan's project years ago, Natural Science from the Worldview of the Quran. How do we take this conventional natural science and how do we present it from the worldview of the Quran? All right, so this is the model that we follow, and this model is actually inspired by Tawbah, Tazkiyatun Nafs, as well as what Al-Ghazali himself, rahimahullah, had done in his lifetime. And this methodology can be akin to the purification of knowledge, so to speak. All right, Tazkiyatul Ulum, for example. All right, what does this three-step methodology entail? Number one, the prerequisite is mastery of the secular body of knowledge. It doesn't mean that you have to master everything, but as your specialization, for example, at least your subject, know it through and through. Keep up with it in terms of its recent developments. And you have to pay very much attention to its philosophical and founding premises. And these are hidden. This philosophical and founding premises, these are usually hidden. So you'd have to really study some of the contemporary and modern philosophies to understand or to be able to pick, to be able to know what are the philosophy and founding premises which are actually hidden. All right. And then after we have done that, and this is based on Al-Ghazali, because Al-Ghazali mastered the Greek philosophy on his own. He studied Greek philosophy for 3 years. And of course, he is master on fiqh, on tasawwuf, as well as other things that he mastered. All right, so having learned that Greek philosophy, he could then identify at that time on certain things that have been affecting or that have affected some of the great scholars during his time, Ibn Sina, for example. All right, so we have to have this mastery, especially in terms of the body of knowledge's philosophical and founding premises. And then step number one, to identify elements that are incompatible or injurious to Islamic Tawhidic worldview. Perhaps in the question and answer session, I can give examples to what we have done in natural science from the worldview of the Quran. All right, so number one is to identify, this is Corong Turas here, to identify what are the incompatibilities that are injurious to Islamic Tawhidic worldview. And once we have identified that, we have to holistically purify that conventional knowledge by correcting those elements or redefining those elements or redirecting those elements or repositioning, or worse comes to us, discarding it altogether. And on what criterion? Of course, Tawhidic Quranic criterion, right? And then the third step is beautification and enrichment. Once we have this, once we have purged the conventional knowledge from its non-Islamic or anti-Tawhidic elements, if we can, if we are capable of identifying them, and then we get rid of them, or we redefine them, or we redirect them, or we reposition them, and then we add on to this purified body of knowledge further Quranic concepts, further from prophetic traditions, further from our Islamic legacy from our previous scholars. All right, so the prerequisite is mastery. Step number 1 is identification. Step number 2 is holistic purification. And step number 3 is beautification and enrichment. Okay, let's move on. All right, the example just now is just one example. There are many, many other ways in which we can do IOHK, from low necessity to medium necessity to high necessity to the highest necessity. I don't have time to go through all of this, but you can go to the IIUM policy and guidelines. I have given the link right here at the bottom of the screen. This is active link. You can just click it and you would be brought to that booklet. And also not to forget relevantization, right? And that's why I said here, the many ways of IOHK and more. We have all of these different ways in which we can Islamize human knowledge. And of course, the first thing is to Islamize ourselves. And Islamizing ourselves is an ongoing process. And IOHK is also an ongoing process. As much as Amar Ma'ruf Nahi Munkar is an ongoing process. All right, so also included there is relevantization. All right, now where is IOHK in SAF? This is the Sejahtera Academic Framework for Foundation Studies. We have all of these elements. You can get this. I have given the link to this booklet also in the presentation. You can find it somewhere in the presentation. So in the context of IIUM, let us look here. Where is IOHK? Of course, when we look at here, we don't find IOHK. All right, but when we look at this is Maqasid al-Sharia. Of course, it's part of our Islamization. It's actually one of our frameworks of Islamization. We have Hifz al-Din, Hifz al-Nafs, Hifz al-Aql, Hifz al-Mal, Hifz al-Nasl, and then we have our vision and mission. All right, our vision and our 7 mission statement, and of course, all of these are based on our philosophy. Okay, and then the core studies, and then the programs. These are all, very much relating to IOHK, and each one of us, as staff of IIUM, we are compelled to do Islamization, both IOS, Islamization of the self, and Islamization of knowledge. And then when we look at BIA, we have the pedagogy, we have the social environment, we have the pedagogical environment, we have the facilities, we have the support system. All of this also have to be developed based on our philosophy, vision, and mission. And then we have down there, Falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan. In the context of Islam, Falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan is very much in line with our philosophy, vision, and mission. If we put that Falsafah Pendidikan Kebangsaan in the context of Tawheed. And then humanizing education, we talk about humanism, just now humanism. We talk about humanism in Islam, not the humanism of secularism, not secular humanism, but humanism in Islam, which is the Insaniyah al-Islam, Insaniyah al-Islam, all right? And we have here learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together, learning to be, learning to become. I would like to mention here that these 5 things are actually based on knowing, being, doing. And this knowing, being, doing, these 3 things are a very fundamental premise in modern psychology, in contemporary psychology. And I'm glad to say that this do, be, know, do, be actually has been taken without crediting, has been taken from Al-Ghazali. Ilm, amal, hal. Know, do, be. And where is IOHK? In the context of IIUM's philosophy, the vision and mission, IOHK is all of this, yeah, Islamization especially of the self and of human knowledge is all of this. All right, let me continue. And even when we talk about the expression of triple I's, which is there in our constitution, which is the crystallization of our 7 mission statement: Islamization, integration, internationalization, comprehensive excellence, triple I's. And then now we don't use this expression much, but we are using khair. Khair by itself means excellence, goodness. And khair is actually an abbreviation of Khalifa, Amana, Iqra, and Rahmatan lil Alameen. They actually mean the same thing. So whether khair, we're talking about the raison d'etre of IIUM. And what is the raison d'etre of IIUM? The reason of being for IIUM? It is Islamization. All right. I am coming towards the end. I am already at the end. Thank you very much. Shukran jazilan. Terima kasih everybody. And inshallah in our question and answer session, we can share further in terms of our, my little experience that I have. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, now let us proceed with the Q&A session. For any one of you who have any questions, you may post the questions in the Zoom chat box.
Or if they prefer to voice it out, why not?
Yes, of course, yes. If you want to voice out your question, you are welcome to do so.
I can see some of our participants here. I can see Brother Nasir, whom I call Sifu Nasir. Assalamu alaikum. Happy to meet you again. And the rest of the participants, you are welcome to just voice out anything.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
I'm Habiba. I would like to ask one question.
Yes, sister.
In applying IOHK in teaching and learning, for sure we have to have a mechanism to have an assessment to be done. All right. So what is a proper method in doing assessment on the element of the IOHK in teaching and learning? Because we know the end product is not here, there and there. It's a long journey, right? Because we want to develop an insan, a khalifa. So what is the proper mechanism to do the assessment? Because if let's say we put it in our learning objective, we have to make sure it can be assessed. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sister Habiba. Perhaps I can share my experience as an academic in IIUM, as a teacher. Mechanism of assessment, I think, of course, it has to be somewhere in our learning outcome. If not, because the curriculum or the course outline has been developed before, it must be in terms of our objective of teaching as a staff, yeah, in the department or as an individual. How do we put this, the mechanism of assessment? For me, I put it in our rubrics, yeah, in our rubrics, for which, of course, before the rubrics, in terms of the titles of our assignments, okay, especially those that are not really hard sciences, but still in the hard sciences, we can have certain assessments or certain coursework that require them to reflect, for example. All right, so in this assessment, then the topics of the assessment must have that indication somehow of the ability of our students to put what they have learned and then put it into the context of Islamization. Are they able to put whatever that they have learned in practicality into the context of Islamization? For example, I teach creative thinking. I used to be teaching creative thinking and problem solving, right? In terms of the problems that I want the students to do, and before that, before I forget, the the nature of the coursework, the titles of the coursework, as well as in the rubrics. Now, coming back to the coursework, in this case, the projects, all right? The nature of creative thinking and problem solving is that we need to have projects, and it is a project-based course. And the titles of the project, I give them the themes, but then they would have to narrow down the theme themselves. In this way, we train them to be alert of what are the issues facing the Ummah. Once they have identified the issues facing the Ummah, and in creative thinking and problem solving, I do. The very first assignment that I give them is actually I ask them to think about a problem that have been nagging in them, that they have not have been able to find the solution to it, right? This problem must be, it could be personal, it could be societal, it could be environmental, whatever. It must be within the three: relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the self, as well as with the environment, right? And we would be surprised to see that our students actually are alert in terms of what are the issues facing them, or what are the issues facing society. And this is one way we teach our students to be alert of the problems that the society is facing. This is one of the Islamization methodologies, right? And then from there, we help them, we assist them in developing that project further. And in that project, of course, they identify the problem, but it doesn't stop at identifying the problem. They have also tried to provide solution, not just in terms of proposing solution. Yes, they have to propose solution, but in terms of their capacity as students, within the limitations that they have to also do something in the effort of dealing with the issue. So here we are teaching our students on practical aspects of IOHK, and from their work, from their presentation, we can then grade that based on our rubrics. And I think those are some of the ways in which we can put the mechanism of assessment of IOHK into our courses that we teach. I hope that answers you, Sister Habiba. Sister Habiba?
Yes, Doctor. Thank you very much.
Most welcome.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Now we do have some other questions in the chat box. Right. The first question here is, perhaps, Doctor, could you please share with us the implementation of IOHK at other universities?
All right. Implementation of IOHK at other universities. All right. To begin with, Islamization is actually the raison d'être of IIUM. And IIUM is the pioneer in terms of institutionalizing Islamization, right? And other universities, for example, USIM, the USIM, as well as some other universities like USIM, these are our daughter institutions. So these daughter institutions also somewhat, establish Islamization, but in other terminologies. For example, USIM uses Naqli and Aqli, the integration between Naqli and Aqli. And then some other institution, for example, Bogor. Yesterday, I had the chance to listen to one professor from this university in Bogor. They use Islamization, yes, but they interpret Islamization in their own way, in the context of, that they have, which is the Indonesian socio-religio cultural milieu, right? As well as we have, if I can share with you, one school, right? One school which is called Legacy International Online High School, in short, LIOS. This is a new school established about 3-4 years ago, based in the United States. It has recently been accredited. This online high school is actually one of the caring schools project of Harvard University. This is an Islamic school, and this LIOS, Legacy International Online High School, uses Islamization in the context of having the worldview of the Quran as the foundation of this school. As a matter of fact, this school, Legacy International Online High School, I am very much involved with it from the beginning, as well as Professor Kamal Hassan, who became the inspiration for the establishment of this school, and the pioneers were his students from years ago in New York. And the founding philosophy is the worldview of the Quran. What motivated them for the establishment of this school is the 3-volume books, Natural Science from the Worldview of the Quran. And natural science from the worldview of the Quran is how we try to integrate the worldview of the Quran with the natural science, how to Islamize, in a certain way. This is this natural science, and that has become the founding premise and the founding foundation, the philosophical foundation for this Legacy International Online High School. Right now, when we talk about high school in Malaysia, it's a bit quite difficult because we have certain things that we have to abide by. So the impact in terms of schools in Malaysia has not been so great in comparison to this LIOS. But there are many other examples. I cannot talk about them, then I will expire the time. I hope those little examples that I gave is able to answer that question, inshallah.
Okay, I think Brother Sifu Nasir is raising his hand.
Okay.
Yeah. Assalamualaikum, Nasir.
Yes,
Yeah,
Sifu.
thank you very much, Dr. Jannah. Don't say that you're old, you are still young and elegant. I have actually, I'll share a bit, give me 1 minute only. I'll share a bit of my experiences during this lockdown. I have a very strange opinion. Actually, I have, during this lockdown, I've applied to Freemasonry to interview them regarding their Masonic education. Alhamdulillah, they've granted me interview. So I interviewed them, and they invited me to their Masonic circle of education, where they train the young people. I realized that this Masonic education, in Oxford University, you have Masonic Lodge also, in Apollo Lodge, and in every top universities in the world. So what I see is that, when they invited me to their few Masonic education circle, I realized one thing. They managed to instill this kind of, not only importance of knowledge, but prestige of knowledge. The prestige of knowledge among the members are so strong. I give you a simple example. When I entered one circle, by this Masonic circle, and they were calling themselves, they don't have NATO, they don't have tune. I will wonder if Obama or Biden were to be in the circle, they will call him brother. Even sisters also call brother. Everyone brother Nasir, brother Saada, brother Haliza, and it's brother. Because when they are in an educational circle, a knowledge circle, everyone is the same. And the presenter will present in ideas, no matter who is he. People would, the one in the circle would interrogate him. I see there's a strong competition of knowledge, a strong competition of knowledge within the Masonic circle, very strong. As well, after competition is over, and then they collaborate. Next circle, competition again. And they come during online, now it's online everything, they come from the various countries. And they will invite Muslim scholars, Masonic Muslim scholars, what they call you also Christian scholars, and come. You have liberal Masons, you have socialist Mason, you have Muslim Mason, you have Christian Mason. In that circle, sort of that kind of intensive internationalization actually makes us mature. I think the problem is that when we talk about Islamization of knowledge, we only talk about Islamization within a very small circle. So if the university, as an international university, can open up, I would say that, and can open up and invite, different kind of people who has totally different idea of Islamization. Maybe invite a scholar who disagree with Islamization of knowledge, who disagree with us totally. Oh, that would be very nice. And then secondly, last comment is that I see that Masonic education, they train their lecturers. You don't expect a goose to always what they call lay golden eggs. A goose need to be fed also. We as lecturers, our knowledge is very still. very still. That's why I applied to Masonic education. Hey, can I go to your circle for 1 or twice only, you know, just to improve my, you know, my mind is like crammed, you know, getting narrow and narrow and narrower and narrower and so on. So if the university bureaucracy sort of support the lecturers, what they call to search for knowledge, create kind of prestige in knowledge, that having knowledge is something that wow, the wow factor, I think it will be, then we can start talking about Islamization of knowledge. The wow factor is not there. I don't see the wow factor in our university, honestly speaking.
Right, thank you very much, Sifu Nasir. I think in the current context of everything online, that opened up a new vista where we can have international webinars. As a matter of fact, I cannot afford to follow all of the webinars because there's too many. And as a matter of fact, that's what we're doing at the moment, Sifu. We are inviting scholars from otherwise we couldn't have, because of the expensive, you know, expenses that are going to be associated with that. But now we can invite anybody from wherever, and we have been doing that, alhamdulillah. And just to share with you about this Legacy International Online High School, you would be amazed at how when we teach the students, you know, when we train the students on the concept of ulul albab, for example, because the model of this natural science from the worldview of the Quran is the ulul albab model, you will be amazed on how very young students of the age of 13, 14, writing like our postgraduate students in terms of the issues facing humanity. Marvelous. And you please Google online and you can find this school and you can find excerpts of their work. And of course, I mean, I'm not talking about everything is so rosy. Of course, there's so many different levels of students, but we are capable of bringing them up to that level. And I think if IIUM lecturers, whether CFS, whether for undergraduate students, whether for postgraduate, if we can actually internalize the values of these lessons that we learn from verses talking about ulul albab, then do away with rote learning, do away with all that examinations that, you know, focuses on memorizing, focus on understanding, focus on application, focus on synthesizing, focus on what they can do with that information that they can just get from online. They don't have to memorize now, you know, everything is on our fingertips. Focus on how they can apply that information into something that would benefit themselves as well as others. Now, just a few, you know, one clarification, the information that they get from the internet, these are data. Even from the Quran, these are data. We need our spiritual heart to be cleansed, to be able to process that data so that it becomes knowledge. And when we talk about knowledge, true knowledge is where we would be having that knowledge, and having that knowledge would bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How? By us trying to abide by, you know, the creed of Islam more and more, being more conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by us being able to identify issues and problems out there, by us being able to offer our solutions. Because Islam is that, it's not just, you know, one person and in a very small shell. Our tendency is to put ourselves inside a bucket. And that's what I heard from one of the reverts who used to be a minister in a Protestant church. He said, you know, I was searching and I never knew that I have a masjid across the street of my house. I was suffering for decades. I was searching. And we Muslims tend to put this light that we have, the light of Islam, inside a bucket. We know what happens to this light when we put a bucket, it would be extinguished. Open that bucket and share that light in whatever ways that we can share. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us through our ruh all the different potentials in terms of our creativity, in terms of our energy, in terms of our intellect, in terms of etc., etc. Train our students to use this for their benefit as well as for others. I think my time is up. It's already 10:14. Thank you very much. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. Any more question, Brother Zakwan?
Okay, actually there's two more questions. Like if you
Okay.
have some time. Right, the first question is from Brother Yusuf at the YouTube. Right, okay. Right, Dr. Jana, would you please explain the importance and placement of Al-Amr bil Ma'ruf in the Sejahtera academic framework?
All right. Okay, Amar Ma'ruf Nahi Munkar. When we talk about the academic Sejahtera academic framework, we are actually talking about relevantizing or making our philosophy, mission and vision and mission to the contemporary scenario as well as further scenarios, because the title of that book is Post COVID-19 situation, something like that, right? So it is for the contemporary as well as for the future. All right, when we talk about SAF being, bringing the relevance of putting the philosophy, IIUM vision, IIUM mission into the contemporary situation, and therefore it is loaded with Amar Ma'ruf Nahi Munkar. All right, loaded with Amar Ma'ruf Nahi Munkar. Example, Islamization of the self. Actually, what is Islamization? Let me talk about that to answer it shortly. All right, I want you to reflect on one hadith whereby Rasulullah SAW one day drew a straight line on the sand of the desert. And then from that straight line, he drew many divergent lines. All right, and then his companions asked, "What is this?" And Rasulullah SAW answered, "This straight line is Sirat al-Mustaqim." And the divergent lines, these are all the divergent ways. And divergent ways, we have plenty. At the personal level, at the systemic level, at the institutional level, educational level, knowledge level, many different ways that we have gone divergent. All right, and our responsibility, our tawbah, is to make us amend our ways, mend our ways, to come back to the straight path. All right, to come back to the straight path. And Adam alayhi salam also experienced that. In terms of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, don't approach that tree, but shaitan had it, and he was enticed by shaitan, he and his wife. They did not only approach that tree, but they ate from that tree. So they have diverged from the straight path. Is that the end of the story? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired them words of tawbah, and they were very they felt the remorse, and they made tawbah, and their tawbah was accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they mended their ways. Now, the process or the things that we do to mend our waywardness back to the straight path, this is Amar Ma'ruf Nahi Munkar. And this is what we mean by Islamization. I hope that clarifies. And let's go to the next question. I think that would be the last, because I think my time is only until 10:15, right?
Yes,
okay, another question, Dr. Brother Zakwan.
Okay. This is the last question. Okay, Assalamualaikum. Science have its own philosophy and epistemology. How to integrate Islamization when the nature of both are not compatible? For example, science accommodates assumptions which is not that accepted in other disciplines, by Brother Ng.
All right, thank you very much for that question. This requires 1 hour at least. But anyways, I tried to be very short. All right, of course, the contemporary conventional science is based on, not based on Tawheed, not based on theism, let alone Tawheedic notion of things, all right? Whereby God has been shoved aside. Let me take natural science, for example, or psychology, for example, yeah? Psychology, the Freudian type of psychology is actually totally off. And then whereby the motivation of people to do anything, even for a baby, are all sexually inclined. This is not the humanism of Islam. This is the secular humanistic way. Now, when we talk about natural science, I talk about natural science because that's my area. I used to be teaching chemistry for many, many years. When we talk about natural science, nowhere in natural science where we see the mention of God. As a matter of fact, everything are actually results of accidents of nature. The universe come about by itself. Human beings are actually accidents of nature, i.e. the product of probability. There is no God. There is no planner. There is no cherisher. There is no Rabbul Alamin. There's no God. There's no creator. We have to take that one out. We have to take that one out and put in. When we study biology, for example, we bring our students outside of the class. Look, feel the air. Look at the trees. Look at all of these. These are all signs by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are all gifted to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مِنْهُ. I have subjected all of the things in heavens and all on earth from me, for you. I have subjected for you all of these things from me. All right. So all of these are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bring this message into our class, into our curriculum, into our textbooks. Right, textbooks. Another example, science. Matter and energy are neither created nor destroyed. How do we deal with this? Because in the Quran says Allah creates, Allah destroys, and Allah recreates. We have to put that into the context. What is the context? That context could be true at a certain level in a very controlled environment of the lab, for example. But when we talk about the universe, that's not true. That's no longer true. So again, we have to identify certain things, either put them into context or redefine them or redirection them. And the criteria would be Furqan, the Quran, the Tawhidic criteria. Or worse comes to worse, like, nature comes by itself through a certain probabilistic random chance, as well as human beings, as well as other things in nature. This has to be taken out and to be replaced with this Tawhidic notion of creation. Allahu Alam, in the limited time that is what I can share. All right, Brother Zakwan.
Okay, all right. Thank you, and Jazakallah khair, Assistant Professor Dr. Nur Jannah, for the beautiful insights and sharing just now. May Allah Ta'ala accept our ibadah and grant us the strength to put into practice on what we have learned just now, inshallah.
Inshallah, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to all of you, although on distant mode. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive me for all the errors that I may have said. Whatever that is good is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever is not is from my own weaknesses. And I seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness for that. Wabillahi tawfiq. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, we will now continue our event today with the forum on implementation of IOHK Kuliah experience. Thus, I will now hand over the ceremony to the forum moderator, Brother Shamsuddin bin Abdullah from Department of Human Sciences, CFS IIUM. Please welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Master of Ceremony, Brother Zakwan. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Apa khabar semua? I hope that everyone is doing fine. Okay, now let us straight away, because I would like to appreciate the best of our panelists for today, inshallah. Our agenda for today, the forum is entitled Forum on Implementation of IOHK, the Kuliah's experience. So just now we have heard on how, the concept of IOHK in terms of sejahtera academic framework. There were also exposure on practices that was actually being held in certain schools, okay, and in comparison even with a Masonic practice even, yeah. So it was quite interesting there to highlight that. So for this forum is much more on focusing on Kuliah practices, and we can share and hopefully be able to actually be inspired by the kuliah practices that we have. Okay, I would like to begin with a bit of an opening. Okay, IOHK is what we inquire. Answer to this is what we require. Prof. Badri is here to transpire, with Prof. Abdul Razak to inspire. Okay, so I would like to welcome our two panelists for today, which is Prof. Badri, Associate Professor Badri. How are you, Dr. Badri? Boleh dengar ke? Am I muted?
I'm good.
Okay, right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay, and how are you, Associate Professor Abdul Razak?
Good, I'm good.
Okay,
Mashallah. Thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, good to hear. So I would like to first briefly introduce our two panelists for today. Associate Professor Dr. Badri Najib bin Zubir graduated from Al-Azhar University, Cairo in 1992 and went on to complete his Masters and PhD at the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London in 1994 and 1999. He has been with IIUM since 1993. He's currently the Director of Academic Programs and Student Management at IIUM Academy. Now for our other speaker, for our other panelist is Associate Professor Dr. Hashi Abdul Razak Abdullahi, completed his bachelor degree in 2001, majoring in theology, comparative religion, and he continued with his master's degree in 2003 and PhD in 2008 on the same field of study, which is theology and comparative religion, at the Faculty of Kuliah of IRKHS, IIUM. His area of specialization is theology and comparative religion. He is an associate professor who is currently also working, serving at the Kuliah of Science, IIUM. All right, so there will be 3 rounds, particularly for our session for today. The first round is on just general understanding of IOHK. Where's my Zoom? Okay, can I just check, is anyone hearing me, because I cannot open my Zoom. Am I still online?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, right. Okay, then I will just recall my memory then. Okay, thank you for that confirmation. Now, there will be 3 rounds. The first round would be one of each question for the panelists on general knowledge only. The second round, we will basically share kuliah practices. And then the third round will be Q&A, inshallah. Okay, so I would like to invite our first panelist for today, Dr. Badri. Dr. Badri, okay, I would like to invite you to actually share with us just briefly for newcomers, for newbies who probably missed even the first session just now. What is actually, in brief, what is actually the general principle of IOHK in IIUM? Tafadhol, mashkoor.
Okay. My voice is clear, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So number one, we say the word that we use, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Islamization of human knowledge. The idea is that when the Western civilization grew and became dominant in terms of advancement in knowledge and also in physical development, with a lot of invention and things like that. The center of knowledge has changed from the Muslim world to the to Europe. So, if you look at the time when the Muslims were dominant in Europe, especially through Spain, for example, and we cannot. We have to also consider the Ottoman foray into Europe from the other side of Europe. So the knowledge that the Muslim had at that time has created to me some kind of shock to them, to the Europeans, because they were amazed, they were mesmerized, they were thinking, how come, what are we going to do with this? What would be our attitude? Without, while sticking my neck for oversimplification, maybe we can say that their situation, the people at that time had originally a feeling of antagonism towards the Muslim civilization. So, and that is because the religion was not the same. Europe was, the religion, the dominant religion was Christianity. And then the Muslims, with this superiority in knowledge, the Muslim embrace the Islam as a religion. So, in general, the initial approach was rejection. This knowledge is from infidels, those who do not belong to our religion. So we just reject it. But at some points, there were people who realized that this is too good to be ignored. We cannot just sit back and say that, well, whatever that, because their religion is different, we don't to be bothered about this. Some people in the West, some started to be interested, and then maybe they sneak into the into Andalus, and they sneak into other parts of the Muslim world and learn from the Muslims. And because of that, they were, of course, they, when you have knowledge, you cannot just sit alone with yourself. You will be burning to let it out and to get other people to know about what you learned, because you feel that you have more than the rest. Especially when people are thinking this way, you are thinking, oh, how you are so, how can you have this level of thinking, whereas people have gone to another level. So now they started to have circles. And as we can see in the European history, when some of these people were detected and traced, the church came hard on them. We heard the story of Galileo and people like him. But later on, when the situation could not be contained anymore, there was this feeling that, well, we don't have to follow their religion. We just want to take their knowledge. Forget about their religion. We just learn and we separate. So if we want to put a term for that, maybe we can say that they have done de-Islamization. They have de-Islamized, because in Islam, all these things are, they come together. Tawheed, recognition of God. The more you know about the universe, the more you are humble, the more you are subservient and things like that. So they said, well, this one we put them away, and we take whatever that is important for us alone. So with the risk of being oversimplifying, can we can say this to be a process of de-Islamization. But Europeans did not sit back. They built up on what they have learned from the Muslim. They went on and on and on. And because of that, knowledge, they have come to a stage where they have advanced in terms of the physical knowledge, knowledge that are not related to the spiritual well-being and things like that. Secular, so-called secular knowledge. And because of that, when there was this, you know, they went all over the world, and the Muslims were exposed to the civilization, then the reverse happened. There was some rejectionists among the Muslims who said, okay, this is this knowledge is from the West. We don't want to bother. We have enough with us to make us achieve ridha Allah, pleasure of Allah SWT. We don't want all this. That's why we have had some scholars in the past, if you dig the history, even there were even those who reject the study of English, and they say, no, this is the language of the kuffar. I read some you know, some writings when television first arrived in Saudi Arabia. There were some scholars who said this is haram. Why? It cannot happen without the assistance of jinn. Because somebody is talking in, let's say, in London, but the face is over here. It cannot be imagined except by the assistance of jinn. So isti'anah bil jinn, getting assistance from jinn, is haram. So this is haram. See? But the enlightened among the Muslim scholars, they abide by this principle. Al-hukmu ala shay' far'un an tasawwurihi. You cannot make judgment on something unless you truly understand what that is. So that's why, you know, people like, for example, I can mention here Sheikh Muhammad Bakhit al-Muti'i. He wrote a treatise on Ibahatul Taswir al-Photography. The why taking photograph is not haram. It's not part of taswir. I mean, creating images and things like that. Because he said, you know, it's actually is an additional step for something that has happened so many years, including the time of the Prophet. What was that? During the time of the Prophet also, there was a mirror. People use mirror. The only advancement that happened is that the image in the mirror is captured. The image on the mirror is not captured, but with the photography, you can, what do you call, steal it. So that's why, if you say taswir photography is haram, it's like saying looking at the mirror is haram. So people, there were scholars like that who really work on, who really abide by this big principle, al-hukmu ala shay' far'un an tasawwurihi. You want to give judgment to something, you have to know, really know what that is. And the epitome of that was Al-Imam Al-Ghazali. Because he didn't study, for example, philosophy just by reading 2 or 3 books and things like that, and then started to give reputation. Before he wrote the Tahafut al-Falasifa, he wrote Maqasid al-Falasifa, the intentions or the objectives of the philosophers. And the philosophers look at it, they said, yeah, this is truly what we are up to, what our business is. Not knowing that he was going to say after that something that will, you know, chop off the whole thing from the roots. I mean, the elements that are not inconsistent, that are not congruent with Islam. So Now, the same thing we can say about Islamization of human knowledge. The situation that Al-Ghazali faced, people were, falsafa or the philosophy was at one time, even the Europeans have forgotten about them. What Aristotle wrote, what Plato wrote, and then this came to the heart of the Muslim world, and they were translators because they were eager to know what is what is there. And then because of that, some were mesmerized by it and some were, captivated by it. And Al-Ghazali, rahimahullah wa radiya an, saw that this is becoming a problem. And I have to put myself where I can, show what is wrong with this. But I have to show it not in a haphazard way, not in an ad hoc way, but in a scientific, systematic, organized way. So that's why he, refuted the elements of philosophy that were not that were not congruent with Islam. And after that, he said, okay, there are certain things like mantiq, for example. So a lot of elements from mantiq can actually be consistent with the Islamic teaching. Because if you look at the Quran, the story of Ibrahim, when he said, well, I don't like, I wanted to worship the moon, and then suddenly the moon disappeared, and then I wanted to, I decided to try worshipping the Shams, the sun, and then Shams also disappeared. Actually, that was about logic. There is logic there. The only thing that the Greek produced was to try to formalize that one. And then when Al-Ghazali realized that, he said, a certain element of logic, no problem. And that's why he said, somebody who doesn't know logic, you cannot really trust in terms of knowledge. But nowadays, there are people who say that, no, you cannot learn logic because this is from the Greek. Do they understand really what logic is before they dismiss? Al-hukmu ala shay' far'un an tasawwurihi. So, now coming back to the question of Islamization of knowledge, human knowledge, we have another wave now because of the wealth of knowledge produced by the secular-minded Europeans and scholars of the West. So, are we going to take them just like that? Or are we going to filter and say that, okay, there are certain elements from this wealth of knowledge that is hikmah. And hikmah, the Prophet said, we are supposed to take from wherever it comes. But there is also poison. So we have to be able to identify where the poison is and put it away. So if I can summarize, the idea of Islamization basically is to have a, not to reject knowledge, to immerse yourself in knowledge, but with a filter. And with this filter, you are supposed to abide by this grand rule, al-hukmu ala shay' far'un an tasawwurihi. And when you understand things, you have to be able to have the furqan. You can discriminate and differentiate which one is hikmah for me to take and bring it back to my people, which one is poison or darar that has to be labeled. This is, yes, this is part of the Western knowledge, but this is darar, and you have the reason for it, because without reason, you are not talking about al-hukmu ala shay' far'un an tasawwurihi. Wallahu alam for the first round.
Alright, Alhamdulillah, thank you very much. I do hope that the participants here today does not think that they are able to see you because of an assisted by the jinn. Yeah? All right, what thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so all right, so I like it that you put it very simple in the sense that Islamization, there are two elements that actually got it. I like it that it inspired how do I say this? Put an emphasis on understanding something first before we actually reject that. That's one. Number two is Islamization is part and parcel filtering. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we would like to go for the Prof. Abdul Razak. Yeah. The other question would be that a basic one would be why is IOH? So just now we explored what is IOHK. Now, why is it important? Particularly, you can tackle it in terms of IOHK, the importance of IOHK globally, or particularly at this particular time, whereby there's overload of information, including Islamic knowledge as well. There's a lot of overload of Islamic knowledge as well there. Is it still important to institutionalize IOHK in terms of the practice in educational institution? Allahu Akbar.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Brother Shamsuddin, inviting and handling the session, and also the organizing team, CFS. Can you hear me? Am I talking to myself?
Yes.
Or you can hear me, guys?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you very much. So, well, the question that you raised, actually, before I answer the question and I go to the question, I would like to add one more story that, happened to me in 2013, which is very much related to what, Prof. Badri mentioned. There was a time that in 2013, I visited back home, and there was a forum, academic forum for secondary school teachers, organized by one of the institutions back home there. And then they were talking about how to improve the educational system of the country, especially in that state, the schooling, the teaching, the learning. There was almost like heart-to-heart discussion. And then because I was there, and one of my friends knew that I came from here, and then they invited me as just to give a small talk or discussion. Then I went there and I participated. Of course, there were 3 other speakers. I was one of them. I mean, one of fourth. And then I talk about the topic that we are talking about today, Islamization and the need for integration of knowledge. Then I explain how science and religion and science and revelation, reason and revelation, the connection, the Quranic perspective, and then, the discussion that is ongoing, of course, in IIUM, in USIM, and in other, Muslim institutions, abroad. So when I finished my discussion, one of the teachers of one of the schools, the secondary schools there, stood up and he asked a question. He said, because in my talk, I give a summary of the Islamic, disciplines, the ulum al-wahy and ulum, the science. So the fiqh, the ulum al-Quran, ulum al-hadith, and then I illustrated, the subjects that we normally study for learning. And then he stood up and he said, look, I have a problem, he said. I said, what is that problem? And then he said, look, when I was young, at that moment, he was a teacher of fiqh at that time. But he said that when he was young, he was actually having a passion, he loves mathematics. He was someone who admired mathematics. And he said he was very good in math. But one day he said in his school, one day his teacher told him, you see, this is very interesting. His teacher told him, when he saw him that he is good in hisab, because in Arabic language we call math, we call it hisab, and sometimes we call it riyadiyat as well. So he told him that if you master, there is a danger, he said. His teacher is now telling him, the danger is if you go deep into mathematics, hisab, and you study hisab, the problem is Allah will give you long hisab in hereafter.
Oh my goodness.
You can see that. If the more you study mathematics and calculations and equations and in general, then hisab in hereafter will be longer. So he said, I better advise you to quit, or change the subject. That's why he said, even though my mind is wired, for mathematics, but now he masters fiqh. But he said, if I listened to your talk at that time, I would have mastered in math today. So this is the mentality that you can see there. What do you think now? When somebody brings this type of, discussion to the table, we have someone who is religiously advising students to avoid important scientific subjects like mathematics. Without mathematics, our life is in trouble. Equations, calculations, measuring. Without mathematics, we wouldn't go to Hajj, and fly in the air. Without mathematics, of course, I don't have to now talk about the use and the importance of mathematics, which is, of course, we all know, right? So I didn't know how to answer. That was very tough question for me, and I don't know where to begin, because we were talking about philosophical level, just now I was listening to, Dr. Nurjanna, and then high level, you're talking about epistemological, ontological, you are using a lot of, what do you call, those terminologies, but people are suffering in the real life, level. Why? I think this is because you can see here, this is as a result of the dichotomy that we were living throughout, for some time now. And because we distinguish between natural sciences and revelational sciences, this is the result now. People thought that if you study revelational sciences only, then you are going to to go to the Jannah. That's what they thought. And therefore they neglected, they thought that mathematics, chemistry, physics, or maybe the applied science, they thought that this is just what? The knowledge of the non-Muslims. It doesn't belong to Muslims. Unknowingly that actually the algebra, the bottom line of, the what do you call, our technology today, is actually the what do you call, it was greatly developed and founded by Muslims, right? So even now you can see the magnitude, of the problem now, right? So then, of course, you can see the importance of Islamization and integration of knowledge now. When our Ustad is teaching our kids that if they want to go to Jannah, they have to abandon mathematics. how to handle this problem now? So exactly, it's very close to the example that Dr. Badri mentioned, that TV must be supported by jinns, right? I was just laughing, and I was like, how bad that could be, that situation. So in answering to your, in coming to your question and answering, I would like to put in this way, it's very deep and very wide topic, but I like to put it in this way, and I will use it bit unconventional way. I hope you bring your mushaf with you today, because I normally like to make my discussions very close to the Quran, because philosophically the topic has been addressed by Dr. Nurjanna, and practically and historically has been illustrated by Dr. Badri. So now I'm just trying to fit somewhere. So I think the place that I can fit is to make, to go to the sources now a little bit, and then we read together, then there we draw some lessons together. Remember very quickly, in Islam, if we all know that, when we read Surah Al-Baqarah and other surahs of the Quran as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the Quran as a book of guidance. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is a book that is to guide the mind, to guide. Hudan lil muttaqin. So someone may stop there. Hudan what? Guide what? Guide the mind, guide the behavior, guide the application, guide the value. This is chapter 2. If you have the mushaf with you, verse number 2, for reference later on. Hudan lil muttaqin. So because it is a hudan lil muttaqin, it guides not only the human being theologically or aqidah aspect. Yeah, it guides that. It provides tawheed, it provides the right belief, it answers the epistemological questions, it answers the ontological questions, fine. It also answers the question is related to learning and applying your knowledge as well. Hudan lil muttaqin. After all, science becomes what? It is what we understood from the divine sources, the divine revelation, and what we understood from the laws of the nature. So when we combine these two, the laws of the nature and the laws of the revelation, then we apply in our life. By doing so, we need hudan lil guidance. This is a process, right? It's a process. So in this process, we need a source to guide. So the Quran describes itself as a book of guidance. That guide is the mind, the behavior, the conduct, the applications, the decisions that you are taking in your life, including the process of acquiring knowledge and the applications of your knowledge as well. And then if you go from Surah Al-Baqarah, you go to Surah Isra now, we jalan-jalan in the Quran, sharing knowledge. If you move from Surah Al-Baqarah to Surah Isra, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the Quran, إِنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ يَهْدِي لِلَّتِي هِيَ أَقْوَمُ. This book, this revelation, the Quran, chapter 17, verse number 9, guides you to the best standard. You see that? The best standard. Why? Because in your life, not only that you need to have values as just, concepts and understanding, as just now beautifully explained by Dr. Badri, but you need also to have values of application. When you understand, you have the concept, then you need also to apply the, your concepts and ideas and thoughts. So in the terms of application, you need how to apply. And that is where the values become important. Al-akhlaq, al-qiyam, the law, the norms. And this is where the Quran says, look, this book or this Quran gives you the best standard in life. So in life, then some people, they say, well, that means the law, right? Okay, then some people, they say social governance, for example, governance or administration or leadership, decision making, fine. All of this, the ulama summarize it. I think if I'm not mistaken, Prof. Al-Faruq explains it, and they call it the values of governance. You need values of governance. So the Quran provides that as well. If you now move, so we need to study the Quran. Why? Because we need guidance. Because it also gives us values of governance. And then you move from Surah Al-Baqarah, you move, Al-Isra, you move to Surah Yunus as well. Chapter 10, yes, chapter 10, verse number 101. It is the Quran itself now that tells you, the Quran itself tells you to read the laws of nature. قُلْ أُنظُرُوا مَاذَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Go and read the laws of nature, the laws that are there in land. Chapter 10, verse number 101. So it is the Quran that tells me now, because now I have to follow the Quran. Quran guides me to the best guide. So the Quran is now telling me, speaking to me, go and study the nature. So I have to study the chemicals, I have to study bodies of the world, I have to study equations and calculations, I have to study the living things and how they live, the structures and the bodies. Then the Quran tells me, قُلْ أُنظُرُوا مَاذَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. And by doing that, then I develop chemistry, biology, physics, mathematics, and other sciences. Fine. Then we can move also from there. You may ask, now the Quran said, study the Quran. Why? Because in order for you to have a guide and values, you need to understand the hidayah from Allah. And in order for you to understand the nature, you need to develop science. But somebody may ask, why do I have to study? Why do I have to develop knowledge? What is the aim eventually? What am I doing? This is the philosophical level explained by Dr. Nurjan just now. Then the Quran tells you in chapter 47, Surah Muhammad, you check. Chapter 47, verse number 19. Verse number 19. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly states that فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. فَاعْلَمْ, go and learn, study, accumulate knowledge, develop ilm. But the Quran tells you already, the aim of your knowledge is to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or realization of His existence. Al-Ubudiyyah, this is what all Ubudiyyah basically means. So now I study the wahi because I need values, the guidance. I study the nature and I know the aim. And then the Quran tells us the functions of knowledge, as mentioned it also, I think Dr. Badri was mentioning, the functions of knowledge as well. What is the function of knowledge? Because this is the worldview of Islam. The function of knowledge is actually, number one, to let you manage and understand your life, and also to make you humble as well. And this is where in Surah chapter 35, verse number 28, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly said, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Khashiyah, humility, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all this one comes with knowledge. The more knowledgeable we are, the more knowledge we are humble, right? The more we are humble and the more we are what? Because we know our limits, right? We can talk about it maybe in a different platform. So then now we have what? We have knowledge, a human being who is humble, humane, mashallah, understanding, develop, fine. That is the function of ilm. Managing life, closer to Allah, realization, fine. In chapter 7, verse number 58, I think 57, please check with me. Chapter 7, verse number 57, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا. وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا. Do not corrupt the land or the nature or life while the life has already been created good. Life in itself is good because it comes from God and God is good. So in itself is good. The only thing that we can contribute to life is not to corrupt it. Right? Because in itself is good. So then today maybe someone says, well, this is very important. And this is now, I'll bring you from that chapter to complete the meaning that I want to reach. From that verse into chapter 2 again. Now we move from Surah Al-A'raf into Surah Al-Baqarah now. Huh? We travel. Chapter 2, verse number 168. I think here. Ya ayyuhan ladhina amanu kulu mimma fil ardi halalan tayyiban wa la tattabi'u khutuwati shaytan. Eat and drink, or basically this ayah specifically mentioned is eat, consume, basically, put in that way. Kulu mimma fil ard. The nature, the natural resources. So the natural resources are halal for us, but the Quran tells us, look, while you are consuming as a food, as a nutrition, do not follow the shaitanic ways of handling it. So somebody says, wait, وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا in Surah Al-A'raf and in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. This is very important for bioscience and biotechnology, especially, right? Why? Because today we are having science, we develop science, but if we don't have values, if we don't have guidance, imagine what could happen, how the process of synthesizing new, different products that we are making. So unless we have halal, way, this is, I think the halal industry nowadays is very important for this, because Islamization is part of, halal industry is part of Islamization as well, right? So when it comes to handling bioscience and living things, natural resources, the Quran is telling us the only value that you can add to this life is don't corrupt it through synthesizing, through, killing the crops by the name of saying what? We are doing, good, even though you are not doing good. Right. So now we have guidance. I think this will be enough. Now let us go to the lessons now. Because I think if we keep reciting the Quranic ayat and quoting them, we have long discussion, right? Now come to your question. Why Islamization is importance or institutionalizing the process of Islamization? I think yes, we need to institutionalize. Yes. And I think this is not what I'm saying, by the way. This is what the ulama, those who have founded, our great scholars, Al-Atas, Al-Faruqi, Abu Sulaiman, and other great, Muslim scholars, and even beyond that, Ibn Rushd, in his kitab, what do you call Sharia, what do you call Al-Aql, ما بين الحكمة والشريعة, and Al-Ghazali, and his efforts mentioned by Dr. Badri just now, whether the early scholars or the contemporary scholars, they both highlighted the importance of, Islamization. And also specifically nowadays, we are worried, how we can institutionalize and make it part of our life. Why? Because today, number one, today we inherited from our colonial fathers. Now we blame Europeans and Western world because sometime, I don't know, there was some kind of weaknesses and then we've been colonized. So historically, we cannot deny those facts that at one time, that there was a time that our affairs were managed by others. And by managing our affairs, they have brought into us a knowledge that is what? Founded on the disbelief in God, atheism. Atheism. Denial of the existence of God. So now today we have science, we have knowledge, we have education, by the way, but in that way, the aim of which is not to find or realize the existence of God. Realization of existence of God is not an aim for our, the secular knowledge that we have today. In fact, the secular knowledge, the secular worldview that is the background for our education, for some educational systems today, is very proud to announce and publicly say that God doesn't exist. Are they right? No. In our view, they are wrong. Why? Because the aim of education, as we said just now, the aim of knowledge is to realize the existence of God and worship and be his servant. That is the aim of knowledge. But today, the secular educational system that we inherited doesn't say that. So what should we do then? Should we just, we are handicapped, we cannot do anything, just the West has developed it, therefore let us just accept as it is? Or we have to provide an alternative? Should we just surrender and take, white flag and then they say, submit, khalas, you guys are wrong, are right, everything, and accept? Or should we work hard and come up and then present an alternative to what they have today? We should provide an education, the aim of which is to realize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to make life better. Should we say since biological science, for example, developed by others and therefore whatever they do is acceptable? Or should we say, no, the concept of halal must be there? In Islam, yeah, the technology is there. In terms of synthesizing the products, we need to Islamize this type of science. By what? Excluding the non-Islamic elements and practices. Or should we just sit down and say, okay, fine, just give us whatever you have for product? Of course, no. The second choice is no. The first choice is yes, we have to provide an alternative. So then, now again, in Islam, not only that Islamic knowledge targets, the philosophical level and the conceptual level, as beautifully explained by Dr. Badri, but also it explains the practical level, the application, the ethical aspect, the application of science, not only the acquiring science. So when it comes to the philosophical level, we need to provide educational system, a curriculum that combines the Islamic philosophy, the Islamic aqidah, the Islamic tawheed, together with the theoretical science as well, the physics, chemistry, and so on. I mean, the physical science and mathematical science, as Muslims did before. So we need to have what? A harmony in the philosophical level. And also we need, when we acquire the knowledge, we need to provide, curriculum of education that helps the students to understand the application of, the Islamic philosophy and also Islamic values and Islamic law as well. And also train, as Dr. Badri also mentioned, the Islamizer, the character building, the character focus, or the agent, they call it, the Islamizing the agent of these, two processes, the philosophical and the application, and the agent is in the middle. So we need to tag it as well. Sadiq, Mukhlis, Abdulillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Khashiyah. So many concepts there. So that's my answer. I think we can continue later, maybe in the second round. Thank you very much.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Abdul Razak. Okay, it's nice that we have a complementing pair. Yeah, so I like it that you actually pair up. We have just now historical evidence provided by Dr. Badri, as well as the textual evidence provided by Dr. Abdul Razak just now. Okay, now let's move on to the main content of this forum, which is the implementation, okay, sharing. Here for the second round, so basically it's the same question for both of you, particularly. I would like to just share my observation of the IIUM guidelines for Islamization. Yeah, I find it quite interesting that the guideline actually highlighted how Islamization should be done on the knowledge particularly, and there's also a particular chapter after that. There's also a particular section after that whereby it highlights Islamization for the non-academic context. For the non-academic context, so this particular part in the guideline there. So macam in terms of management, okay, and etc. There lah, outside of the academic lah. So it calls non-academic area of Islamization. Okay, so Alhamdulillah, we are also blessed to have Dr. Badri as well as Dr. Abdul Razak, in which both are academics, which later on. So the question is basically, how do you actually practice Islamization at your own kuliah? For Dr. Badri is KIRKHS, and for Dr. Abdul Razak is KOS, Kuliah of Science, as an academic, so in the academic framework there, as well as I want to also macam dig a bit into how is it that Islamization is applied in terms of the non-academic aspect. Okay, since Dr. Badri is also the director for the academic program for academy. Okay, so there's a management role there, as well as Dr. Abdul Razak, in which station centrist, right? So you can both. I will repeat again the question: how Islamization is implemented at the academic matters as well as the non-academic matters. Okay, same question for both of you. So I would like to invite Dr. Badri first. Okay, tafadhal mashkoor.
Thank you very much. The first question on academic matters, I want to go back a bit about the university itself. Yeah? The university was founded in 1983. And the idea at that time, the formulation of the vision of the university and also the mission of the university. And so many times we have heard from Prof. Kamal that the idea is to infuse Islamic values into modern disciplines. And so you have the infusion of values into those who are studying modern discipline. And you have also, in the body of knowledge itself, the teachers or the academics need to be able to show, the elements that I have mentioned, the elements of hikmah and the elements of darar or poison, so that the students will have a balanced perspective, a correct perspective in terms of the approach to knowledge, the approach to acquisition of knowledge in the context of the modern world, where we have sources of knowledge coming not only from the Muslim but also from the non-Muslim with their own assumptions and things like that. Now, at that time, there was no Malaysian qualification framework. There was no MQA. But there is this, if you like, maqasidic thinking. We have a maqsid to achieve. And when we have a maqsid to achieve, an objective that we want to get there, it means that we have to arrange our activities in line with that objective. So if you want, if you want to give an analogy, if you want to go to, to Johor Bahru from here, you cannot be setting your foot to the north. You have to, follow the map to Johor Bahru. So human beings can think, and those who are blessed with wisdom, regardless of theoretical, the existence of any theoretical framework for how this is going to be done, they had in their mind at that time. You can see Prof. Ahmad Ibrahim, Prof. Kamal, and we have some others who helped to develop this, to develop IUM, to develop the curriculum of IUM at that time, economics and law. So their idea was to ensure that the students who graduate from the bachelor degree and also from the various economics degrees in the economics, either in, let's say, accounting or business admin or whatever, they do not only possess the so-called secular knowledge, but they also know which part of the secular knowledge we can take and implement for the betterment of the ummah, and which part we have to say that, label and say this is darar or this is a poison, this is we cannot accept this. So in terms of whether the curriculum at that time, 1983 to let's say 1990, you see MQF was developed sometime around 2003 or 2004, something like that. So from 1983 to 2003, there was no MQA to see over us. There was no MQF. We are basically free to do things. And then the Center for Fundamental Knowledge has evolved into Kuliah of Islamic Review Knowledge and Human Sciences. And in this kuliah, in order to ensure that there is this integration between the two domains of knowledge, Prof. Kamal, for those who are new to CFS or who have not been long enough, Prof. Kamal insisted at that time, because the idea was to establish this faculty. So Prof. Kamal insisted to Dr. Abdul Hamid Abdul Sulaiman, you want to have this separate faculty, you must have Islamic knowledge together with human science. And that is why for the first batches of graduates in Islamic Review Knowledge and Human Sciences, minor was required. So if you are in Islamic Review Knowledge, you are required to take one minor from Human Science. Or if you specialize in Human Science, you have to take one minor. You have to take the Islamic Review Knowledge as a minor, the package of Islamic Review Knowledge as a minor. And at that time, the ambition was so high that those who were taking human science, they have to complete advanced level of Arabic. Because at that time, the idea was that, if possible, we want people who graduate, they will be able to read the text so that they can refer to the writings, the writing, maybe not the most sophisticated ones, but at least the basic writings in Islamic knowledge, in Islamic heritage, in its own language, which is Arabic. The notion, like Prof. Ahmad Ibrahim, if you ask him to give a lecture in Arabic, he wouldn't give you a lecture in Arabic, but reading the sources, he has no problem with that. This is something that has happened to many the Pondok scholars also in Malaysia, many of the religious scholars in Malaysia. During the golden period of Islamic education, there were many of them who could read and explain and understood and give commentary to the books in Arabic,
But if you ask them to give lecture in Arabic, they couldn't do it. Maybe they couldn't, and maybe they are not fluent in speaking Arabic, but they are very, very deep in terms of knowledge of the text, for example. They can explain one by one from various aspects. You know, not only for, let's say in fiqh, they can also explain from Arab and Balagha and things like that. So now that was how the Kuliah of Islamic Review Knowledge and Human Sciences was founded. So it means that there is this idea, this is what we want to achieve, and because of that, the curriculum is put in such a way in order to achieve that. But later on, there was these directives from the ministry and said, okay, you can, at one point they said you cannot impose minor, it must be the student's choice. And at another point, there was another ijtihad coming and say, oh, no problem, as long as you want to give the student ability to be more knowledgeable, more marketable. And then there were this, the MQF, for example, which states what are the domains that must be taken care of by the university. So the Kuliah, because we cannot run away from this regulatory framework. We cannot run away from the regulations. So the way that the Kuliah did was to try to accommodate, try to fit in, not to throw away the Islamization agenda or the integration agenda, but now if you want it, for example, OBE, the curriculum has to be written in the OBE approach. So okay, we write it on OBE approach, but we are not going to let go of Islamization and integration. So now the document that you referred to, Mr. Brother Shamsuddin, Chairperson, that time, what I can share is that around 2009, the time was what, about 2009. Of course, we were talking how to intensify Islamization, how to intensify integration and things like that. So I felt that at that time it was too philosophical. So I spoke to Prof. Kamal. I said, Prof, is it possible if we can list down activities? Okay, now if you say, let's say if you do not really understand, you know, the philosophical concept of Islamization and things like that, can we at least for the newbies and things like that, list the activities that come under Islamization? So Prof. Kamal said, okay, that's a good idea. So that's why he started to list. And then he came out with the list. And at that time, we said to the Kuliah, okay, now to those in human sciences, your job is to do at least one of these in the list. And Alhamdulillah, the list is now inside the policy guideline, policy on Islamization. And then we went further and said, what about those in revealed knowledge? The main concern of in revealed knowledge is that they have to know the waqi'. So in order for them to know the waqi', they have to know sciences in order to make them understand the waqi'. Not in the intuitive way or in hard work, ad hoc way or haphazard way. No, in a correct way, in scientific way, based on what we can get from whatever that is beneficial, is hikmah, from the things that explain our waqi'. So because of that, we wanted to have a list of relevantization activities. And thankfully, that was also done and included. So actually that policy, the policy on Islamization came out from that, conversation. But the challenge now is that, I was amazed at one point that we had a meeting, and then we were talking about Islamization and things like that. And then the question of how to do this, how to do that came about. I said, actually that can be easily solved because we already have a book. Where? So apparently not many knew of the existing of this IIM policy on Islamization and integration of knowledge. Islamization. So now, of course, we can talk more about what are the processes or what are the activities that have been done. But now I have to come to the second question, the non-academic activities. So with regard to non-academic activities, if you want to cite a reference, you can talk about Prophet Yusuf, when he suggested to the person in what they call the governor of Egypt, and say that "Ij'alni ala khaza'in al-ard," let me take care of the treasury, because he is Hafiz and he is Alim, because he knows how to have to take care of the treasure as amana, and he has knowledge. He has Alim. He knows how to do things. Because if you have the intention to conserve, take care, of what you do, but you do not know how to do it, you don't have the knowledge to do it, it's not going to happen. With regard to Prophet Musa, one of the daughters said to the father, "Inna khayra man ista'jarta al-qawiyul amin." One of the daughters said, why don't you employ this guy, Musa alayhi salam? Because she could observe that Prophet Musa has two traits. He has the strength and he is trustworthy. Al-Qawi al-Amin. He has the strength, not only the strength in terms of the physical strength, but if you look at the administration, and you have to have the strength of character. If you have difficulties, you have to have the strength of character to face this and to overcome. And you have to be trustworthy, meaning that you're not going to betray the trust and things like that. So to complete, how do you do that to the people under you? So it means that one of the things that we have to take care of is to emphasize on these values. Because Hafiz and Alim, for example, it means that you have to have the value of itqan. You have to do it correctly. And because if you want to do it correctly, you have to have knowledge. And when you have knowledge, you have to deliver with amana. So that's why, to complete my, I gave the situation with Sayyidina Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Yesterday I was talking about this. The famous story that, it is difficult to find people who can accept zakah during his time. We tend to take that story, oh, this is great. But did it just because he said, okay, I want no fuqara in this time, and then suddenly after a week, no fuqara? Doesn't happen like that. He had to do something. He had to execute So if you, but we normally tend to ignore this. We didn't dig deep enough to see how did he do it? How did he do it? So in other words, we have to dig more. But let's say if maybe we can dismiss this as an exaggeration. This is, I mean, people love him so much, they say that this is exaggeration. But perhaps it was true. But because, for example, the way the person in charge of distributing the zakat was so efficient, and the people he employed to distribute the mal of zakat was so efficient that the mal of zakat really went to those who are in the asnaf. So because of that, you can hardly find somebody who need. Allahu Alam. So that is the implementation of Islamic Islamization, if you like, if you want to use the current term, in administration and in non-academic activities. Wallahu Alam.
Right, Alhamdulillah, thank you very much. Okay, nicely covered for academic activities as well as non-academic activities. I would like to invite Dr. Abdul Razak to also share some practices for the academic as well as non-academic activities. Wallahu a'lam. Tafadhal. Dr. Abdul Razak, you are muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, okay. Now,
just to make sure that there's also a flow of questions that we can entertain. I would like to remind, if it's okay with you, at 11:45 we will entertain questions. Yeah, inshallah.
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shamsuddin and Dr. Badri. As Dr. Badri mentioned, I would like to, the question touches a very wide topic, but I'll try to narrow down and squeeze it into, maybe a few minutes into a few topics. Well, number one, I think as, also did, as Dr. Badri mentioned as well, I would like to put it like, Colloquium of Science by nature, of course, teach science. Although quite interestingly, I am not from science, I am from IRK. And I am the product of the integration process that was explained by Dr. Badri himself just now. Bro, my major was Usuluddin and comparative religion, my bachelor, and my minor was communication. So those, those in Usuluddin are my, how can you say, my fathers of education. And those in communication are also my fathers of education as well. I'm proud to be the son of this Kuliya as well, Kuliya of IRK. But now I'm serving the Kuliya as well, Kuliya of IRK. I'm serving it in science. So I am now the connection and the chain between the two Kuliya. Of course, the whole campus. I'm just putting it just to show my loyalty. Fine. So here goes. It's like Colloquium of Science by nature is a Colloquium that is designed to teach science, especially hardcore science or natural sciences, as reflected in the mission and vision of the Colloquium, as well as the departments that are under the Colloquium as well. So if you go now and see the website of the Colloquium, you can see, for example, Department of Biotechnology that focuses on the combination of bio, the living science, and also the technology together, more like engineering and living science. Then you have computational and theoretical science as well, mathematics department. And then you have Department of Physics, the natural science. And then you have Department of Chemistry. And then you have Department of Marine Science. And then you have Department of Plant Science. So basically you have 6 academic departments within the Colloquium. Plus, you have Institute of Oceanography and Marine Science, and also you have Central Research, CREAM, they call it CREAM, which is basically designed for research, conducted in the Colloquium, or in fact, it serves the whole campus, but it's under the Colloquium as well. So as reflected in the departments, as you can see here, the Colloquium focuses on, natural sciences, But how Islamization, now because I don't have to explain what the Kuliya offers, later on you can see from the website, but the question was how Islamization is practiced in the Kuliya, right? That is the question that Brother Shamsuddin, right? Sharing the experience. Basically, Islamization is sorry, practiced and experienced in the Kuliya in two levels. I could say that, same like what Dr. Badri mentioned. The academic level. And in the academic level, academic subjects are taught. Basically, there are, three basic IRK subjects, I can put in that way, offered in the Kuliya under the Department of Fundamental Sciences, that is under Kuliya of IRK. Of course, in generally known as UNGS. And that is, what do you call the subject, three subjects. One of them, philosophy and worldview, focuses on the Aqidah aspect, the Islamic, theology. And also the second one focuses on Islam knowledge and civilization. It focuses on how knowledge is developed in Islam, on the methodology. And then the third subject focuses on the application of science. That is the fiqh aspect. They call it contemporary, fiqh and ethics. So these three subjects are actually taken by all Kuliya students offer it, regardless of the department. Normally they finish it within the first and second year. And this is common, of course, within, of course, with other Kuliyas as well. It's not specific to Kuliya of Science. Because these subjects are meant to, share the basic knowledge of Islam to the student, regardless of their department and Kuliya as well. So in that sense, we share those UNGS subjects. And beside that, we have also one more academic subject, that is philosophy of science. Basically, the subject is offered also in Usuluddin. They call it RKUD. But we develop it in order to fit more on the natural science, because Usuluddin, normally they have a different theme, different focus there in Usuluddin and, in Usuluddin department. It's an IRK. But here, when we brought in that subject, we focused more on the natural science philosophy, the philosophy of the natural science. Because that one you have to include social science, the historical, it's a long story there. But this one is a bit different. And that one is offered actually to the students of the Kuliya as well. They all have to take it because it concerns them all. Then beside that, number 5, we have, for example, some departments, especially theoretical science departments, have to take a subject called Islam and Science. For example, Department of Physics, Department of Mathematics, they have to take that subject, the student. And that subject focuses issues about science, the Islamic, application or the Islamic understanding of science per se, more like the theoretical aspect. And then we have halal and haram concept subject that focuses more on the application and is taken by Department of Biotechnology, for example. They have that subject. And also Department of Chemistry as well, because they are focusing on, the products that we have, the bio products, more on like the application and so forth. So we focus there in philosophy of science. The focus is more on like Usuluddin and Islamic philosophy. So Imam al-Ghazali, Ibn Rushdi, Ibn Sina, those other guys, come in the debate that is known, in Tahafutul Falasifa and so forth. But when it comes to halal and haram concept, the focus is more on like the fiqh and Islamic law and halal and haram aspect, the law, the legal aspect, the value aspect. And then we have also another, some departments now they have a choice. They may be like, for example, CTS, for example, Department of Mathematics and Computational Science. They have what they call Islam and Science. And then that's where Fara'id and some other issues are, addressed. And then when you come to biotechnology, they have biotechnology, law and ethics again, because in biotechnology is a subject that is very much law loaded, the biotechnological practices. So they have also that subject that is focusing on that area. In the master level, we have a subject that is called Islam and, Islam technology, Islam, technology and science. So the students who are doing postgraduate studies, PhD or master, they have to take that subject as well. It's offered and taught by different, team. Initially it was taught by only IRK, but now it's more like moving towards, supposed to be taught by different academicians. So these subjects are designed actually, as you can see, to share the students, or to let the students know more about the Islamic input in science. They are studying chemistry, they are studying physics, they are studying biology, but these subjects gives them the opportunity of knowing also basic knowledge about, and normally when we finish those subjects, this is my experience with the student normally ask, is that all? Should we have more? That were the questions normally we have, as if the students are more, they have a hunger for more Islamic knowledge. They have passion, they want to continue. They say, well, these, maybe 7 or 8 or 10 subjects is not enough. We want more. That is the feeling normally we have. And somewhere in our discussions, there have been a suggestion that maybe same like what IRK did, or maybe Colloquium of Law, whereby they have, minor and major. I think Colloquium of Law, if the student want to have double degree, they can add 1 year Sharia law, right? If I'm not mistaken, I think Dr. Badri have more experience, can share, right? So maybe someone suggested in our discussion is that maybe we can at least provide a minor in Islamic studies from IRK for our healthy and science-based students here in Kuantan. At least those who want to do, double degree, let us say they finish their 4 or 5 year degree here, and then we provide them. You can also add 1 more year if you want in Islamic studies, and that may serve, your need for more Islamic input, because normally the student feel that, oh, these 10 subjects is not enough. We want more. Normally that's what they mentioned. I think not 10, about 6, 7, well, around 6, 7 subjects in all. So that is about the academic. Another aspect of the academic is, since the establishment Kulliyah have also what we call conferences, academic conferences, and and practices. So in our conferences, normally we have conferences that are focusing, for example, on pure and natural sciences and applied science, as well as related to the Kulliyah, the theme of the Kulliyah. We have like for example, what we call ICAS. ICAS is an icon developed by Kulliyah of Science long time. So normally every 2 years or every 3 years it takes place once, and it focuses on the scientific subjects. But beside that, we also have conferences that are focusing on the integration of knowledge as well. So sometimes our friends ask us, hey, you guys are Kulliyah of Science, what are you doing with integration of knowledge? That should be done by IRK, none of your business. So then normally we have to respond them, no, look, we are complementing each other. We are not competing each other. We are serving, in our, because our academic, the scientists here, the academia are requiring us to, share with them the Islamic input. So we have to at least provide a platform for them to discuss those matters. So that is another, academic activity that is ongoing. Normally we focus on different topics, but at least we have that, conference as well. That is every 2 years once, every 3 years once, as as we can, financially and also the timing. Now, we also have some research grants that are meant also to, at least work on certain topics that are matter of interest for science and also for IRK as well, subjects. So we have different, a number, actually, I can say a number of, research grants that are combining between these 2 subjects. And we found them very useful, actually, because it brings people together. It brings people from science and people from IRK to work together hand in hand. In for example, in halal aspect, in, for example, let us say fighting those kind of, let us say health issues. We have a number of, research that are approved, even to the level of TRGS, transdisciplinary, research grants given to us by High Ministry of Education, 3 of us. So it's a kind of like, again, another academic area where we can bring the 2 subjects together and choose a topic that is a matter of interest for both subjects, and provide the scientific aspect and the Islamic input as well together. Then we have a number of publications from there, in the standard, journals, Scopus and above, and also non-Scopus as well. Finally, beside that, we have what we call science forum, which normally organizes in the Kulliyah and also to the campus sometimes forums that are meant to address certain ethical and spiritual matters, more like tazkira sessions. Sometimes they have like monthly sessions, sometimes they have 2, although nowadays because of COVID-19 there's a slowdown in all these activities. But that forum is actually meant to address more on like the need for the agents, the agent of Islamization. We are all agents of Islamization, inshallah. But we have to address also the spiritual, the what do you call the ibadat. So it focuses on that and invites known speakers and scholars to address and share their aspects on that. So the topics of taqwa, the topics of ihsan, the importance of ibadah, the importance of the Quran, in relating to science. These are all addressed in that forum. So you can say that it's a combination of both academic and also non-academic activities. So that is what I can share with you. So academic activities, we have some formal subjects taken by both postgraduate and undergraduate students. And then in other aspects of academics, we have also research that are conducted by both scholars, or academicians from both sides. And non-academic activities, we have those forum sessions that are meant to address that aspect. So yeah, that is our experience in Islamization and integration of knowledge, to provide an alternative paradigm to this secular knowledge. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Abdul Razak. Okay, now let's move on to our question and answer. So there's one question at YouTube by Brother Hazwan Azri. He asked, and I would like to channel this question to Dr. Badri. Brother Hazwan Azri asked how to set up a new education system wholly based on Islamic Aqidah and system to produce insan with shakhsiyah Islam.
Oh, mashallah. I think that is for Dr. Badri, right?
I can copy paste the.
Okay, how can we produce? It is if we have the answer to that question, then we are. We will. We are going to settle, more or less settle the problems. But the issue here is that, as mentioned, one proverb in Arabic says, "Ma la yudraku kulluhu la yudraku kulluhu." What you cannot achieve in all, you cannot leave it all. So it means that if you, let's say, if you have 100 students and your school intends, your objective of the school is to produce 100 students with taqwa. You don't want to, have anybody not achieving that. Let's say if you find a way to achieve that, you find a way to try to reach that, are you going to get 100%? If you don't get 100%, then you say, oh, sorry, we have tried, we don't get 100 to be good enough. We only get 20. So we might as well close the school. It's not like that, because ma la yudraku kulluhu la yudraku kulluhu. You cannot achieve in all, you cannot leave it all together. So now the issue here is that my beloved brother Dr. Abdul Razak mentioned, fa'lam annahu la ilaha illallah. Fa'lam. Al-Bukhari, Al-Imam Al-Bukhari mentioned, for example, in his book, al-ilmu qabla al-amal, or qabla al-iman wal-amal, because, or something like that. So it means that you, in order for you to say La ilaha illallah, we don't want parrots to say La ilaha illallah. You just, by rote learning, ask somebody to say La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. And there is no realization rationalization of what that means. So now fa'lam, you must have the knowledge, you must have the awareness and the cognizance of La ilaha illallah. So of course, that is the first thing that we have to work on. So if we have a school, we have to ensure that everybody will have this solid foundation of Tawheed. And Tawheed here is not a Tawheed that is taught in a dry way, in a dry manner, that it doesn't connect with akhlaq, for example. So when we say La ilaha illallah, it has connection with Iyyaka na'bud wa Iyyaka nasta'in. And ibadah is not just praying, salat, saum, and all these things, but it is about how you manage your life. Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin. My life and my death is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now, how do we ensure that we can do that if we set at a school, or for example, or education? Of course, when you talk about education, you cannot just talk about curriculum. You can have the best curriculum, but you still need the best teachers to deliver the curriculum. And that is where you have so many variations that can come in that will affect the quality of what you produce. But if you want to look at if you are looking for a model, for example, during the first few years of the establishment of the university, you can find the first batch or second batch or third batches of the university. They were not in Islamic review knowledge. They were not in Usuluddin or Quran Sunnah, but the amount of Qiyamul Layl, the amount of guidance given by those in Center for Fundamental Knowledge was huge. You know, somebody can be asked, why are you not praying Jama'ah? Now we don't have that kind of situation because our number is now big. So if you want, so in order to produce the type of people that we want, we can put it in insan salih and muslih, for example. Somebody who is, righteous and intend to spread righteousness and ensure that, the environment also be a recipient of the Islah. But how do you do that? So like the madhahib, you will have different approaches to do that. But whatever approaches, you have the curriculum. But as I mentioned to you, on top of the curriculum, you need somebody who is going to deliver. You are not going to do it if you are one person to establish a school or university. You cannot establish with one person. You need other people, and how to get the rest to come together to do this. So in a way, our university, and especially the Faculty of Islamic Review Knowledge, went through that because Prof. Kamal was worried. How do I get somebody to teach in to teach in Department of English Language and Department that is not glorifying the West, that are so enthralled by Shakespeare as though is the best thing in the world? But this Prof. Dr. Dato' Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman, due to his wide connection, he could bring some people in the key areas of the, from communication, certain names, and for psychology, he convinced Prof. Malik Badri to come in English, some lecturers. But there were also because we have to cope. There were some lecturers who also came not with this mentality, and after a while they also either the university get them out or they felt that they are not really in line. They cannot. I can tell you one example, but I cannot give name. When I was the dean, I had somebody send in an application to get a position in the Department of English Language and Literature. And when I look at this PhD from an English, university in England, and I'm not going to name it because you will do the searching. So a university in England. But when I look at it, he started off with madrasah and completed the alim education. At that point, I said, I really must interview this guy, because it is very rare to find somebody from madrasah school, madrasah education, going into English and perform to the top, at the top level in English. But of course, there is this fear also, because maybe he learned in madrasah and then he went, flip 180 degrees, become somebody else. But thankfully, after the interview, I understood that this guy has very clear Islamic foundation, and that foundation remains in him. And I'm very glad that he is now in the kuliah and pushing for Islamization in the area of these kind of guys we need to have. That's why we try to produce people, try to nurture. We can let go of the word produce, forgive the expression. Nurture similar type of scholars within the faculty, for example, so that if we have more people like this, then it is more likely to be successful rather than an excellent curriculum that we write. Excellent teachers, excellent lecturers will produce people who are capable, motivated, inspiring, and all these things rather than the curriculum. Allahu Alam.
Right, Alhamdulillah, thank you very much. So a key point in there is basically the human resource management, to find the right person to actually, pioneer the movement.
Brother Shamsuddin, if I may add one point.
Please, yeah, Dr. Razak, please.
I know Dr. Badri explained it beautifully, so I thought I just compliment with him. The idea that Islamization, basically Islamization of knowledge, like any other project, like any other, job that we're doing, always requires people who are dedicated and committed to, and also training for that, and training, of course, through the curriculum and so forth. But for me, I put it in this way: Islamic tradition, we have, of course, when we want to explain such things, we have to always refer back to the Quran and Sunnah. So if we go to the Quran, one of the basic teachings of the Quran is the concept of al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, right? As a Muslim, your job, one of the hallmark of the Muslim identity is Muslim by nature is someone who commends good and prohibits bad. In other words, you are someone who is there to make a positive contribution in life, put in that way, as a Muslim. Al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, right? So basically, when you are doing al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, normally we hear al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar in terms of morality, right? In terms of akhlaq, in terms of adab, in terms of da'wah, right? To me, I think even Islamization is part of that concept, al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. Why? Because when you are doing Islamization of knowledge, what you are actually doing is you are excluding the corrupted ideas and philosophies and beliefs that are, corrupting science and knowledge. You are excluding those elements from the, the knowledge that we have. So by doing that, you are commending the good In other words, providing the good knowledge, the right knowledge, the true knowledge. So by providing the true knowledge, you are commending good. By excluding the false ideas, you are prohibiting bad in that sense, right? So basically, Islamization of knowledge is one of the key characteristics of the Muslim, actually, because if, let us say, people of law are doing al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy al munkar by establishing justice, if, let us say, in politics, people are providing good leadership and therefore commending good and bad, if, let us say, people in the masjid are giving us a good speech, and they're therefore telling us, al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy al munkar, if academicians are doing a good research by doing, and so forth, also academicians today, and everyone, not only academicians, every one of us, we have a duty to provide the true knowledge to humanity, but in that way. By excluding atheism, corrupted, beliefs, those, unacceptable, what do you call isms that we can talk about it in the later on, non-Islamic elements. So to me, by nature, a Muslim should involve in Islamization of knowledge in the theoretical aspect. Why? Because it comes under al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy al munkar in that way, both in the philosophical level and also in the practical level, the application level. But when it comes to that process also, the ulama listed down, a long list of who is the person who's supposed to do al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy al munkar, the guideline, the SOB, and one of the SOB is, look, before you commend good or prohibit bad, one of the requirement is you must apply that to yourself as well. So self-discipline, self-development, building your character is part of your duty. If you are not consistent, as Dr. Badri said just now, if you are not consistent with your words and actions, then you cannot do any islah, you cannot do any reform, you cannot do any revival, right? You cannot walk on it. So in order to do something good in life, you need to improve yourself in terms of taqwa, in terms of learning, in terms of ihsan, in terms of, what do you call, following the. So in other words, al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahy al munkar is what we are doing, basically. That is what we want to do. We want to make a positive contribution in life. And by doing that, it has to start with ourselves in terms of praying salat, saum, hajj, ibadah. In other words, the agent of Islamization must be Islamic as well. In other words, in that way. And by doing that, again, I just add one more point. Not necessarily to be IRK graduate. You can be a pure scientist, you can be a chemist, you can be a physicist, you can be, and thanks God, because I belong to both, as I said just now, I'm proud to belong both science and IRK. I always mention that, it's like as a plus point for me. Proud to be a student, from IRK, and also a staff of Colloquium of Science. I have seen that, when people understand the idea, there are some, you see everybody is, there is a hunger, for, I want to contribute to Islam, but tell me how. This one is from mathematics, or maybe from physics, or maybe from chemistry, and they want to know how. So I think, as Dr. Nurjana was mentioning this morning, we need to reach out, not only to others, but also to ourselves within the university, within the kulliyas. And that's why I want to mention something that, maybe Dr. Badri can help me on answering. We need to make the knowledge of IRK available to all kulliyas, not only to the student, but also to the staff. But I don't know how. Why? Because they want to Islamize, they want to help, they want to work on it. But because they were trained as a scientist, they feel that IRK now become a discipline, therefore they need special training. While basically IRK is supposed to be available to all of us. And this is the product of the secularism, because science is science, IRK is IRK. Only those who study IRK can talk about IRK. Ada masalah ini. So how to make the knowledge of IRK available to our student and to our staff. And by saying that, I am not undermining our staff's knowledge in Islam, but I'm just talking about how to make Islamization also available to them so they can play their role. Not only IRK people have to talk about Islamization, but every academician have to talk about Islamization and apply if possible. That is just sharing with you because we are talking about Islamizing the agent. Thank you. Sorry for talking long.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Razak, for adding that point there. Here I'm going to talk about the organization here a bit so that we can make the best use of time here, as well as I need to be justice to the people who post this question here. There will be one medium question and one short question for Dr. Abdul Razak, and the last one I will reserve one hot question for Dr. Badri to end the session here. Okay, I would also like to actually know the answer here. So it's interesting that just now Dr. Abdul Razak, you mentioned about how the trained scientists also want to contribute. In fact, in YouTube, already one person, Madam Harlina Damiri, actually asked, can those subjects taught to students mentioned by Prof. Abdul Razak also be open to lecturers to explore, especially for the natural science lecturer? So that's already an indication. Any brief response to that, Dr. Abdul Razak?
I think, yeah. I think in my response, I'll give to Dr. Badri because he is from IRK, because the subjects are offered from IRK. So I think Dr. Badri can comment on, because these subjects are offered now to our science student. But basically the subjects were designed in IRK, as just mentioned by Dr. Badri as well, because they wanted to make the IRK the subjects of IRK, the subject of Islamic revealed knowledge, like fiqh, usuluddin, da'wah, and other subjects, and tasawwuf. They want to make those subjects available to non-IRK students, and that's why they designed this Department of Fundamental and Multidisciplinary subjects. So the subjects that we are teaching now to our students are being offered, given to us by IRK, of course, with the instruction and guideline of the university. But when they design the subjects, they design for our students. So I'm not sure if there are similar subjects that are designed or maybe, offered to our staff, which the idea is actually a welcomed idea that, not only that our students have to take IRK subjects, but also our staff, because, they themselves also need to know about Islamic knowledge, right? And not only science-based lecturers have to know about IRK, to my understanding, but also lecturers from IRK need to also know more about the scientific subject as well. So we need IRK lecturers who are also good in chemistry, like just now we were mentioning Dr. Nurjanna, who is her background is chemistry and also, graduated from IRK as well, Islamic studies. So we need this kind of combination. So we need to cross multidisciplinary in nature, subjects, because we cannot keep this dichotomy, for some. In other words, IRK to actualize have to break down this dichotomy of scientific subjects and also IRK. So we need this integration, which is now being experienced in an IRK, but also we want to apply to science and also to healthy science as well. So in that case, I would like to say, yes, it can be offered to our staff, but I don't know on what platform, as a diploma, as a master. I don't know which which hierarchy it comes in, but currently those subjects are offered to our students. But why only for our students, not for our staff? Maybe Dr. Badri can help on that.
Okay, since Dr. Abdul Razak mentioned Dr. Badri several times, I will allow that first. Can you have a brief response to that, Dr. Badri?
Previously, there was this effort by the university, but somehow it did not sustain. When I first came back from UK, I was entrusted to coordinate two programs: Diploma in Human Sciences and Diploma in Islamic Revealed Knowledge. So Diploma in Human Sciences is for those who join the kuliah with a Sharia background or Islamic studies background. So, those who graduate from IRKHS, they had the minor and all this thing, but there are people that we have to employ from outside, those who people like me, for example, who came back from Al-Azhar, because, but in my case, maybe because I was in SMKA, so I was exposed to sciences other than just pure Islamic sciences. So, but there are people who came through the traditional schools, traditional madrasa, and then they achieve, for example, a degree in from Al-Azhar, from other universities, but they have no idea what psychology is about, what communication is about, what sociology is about, and so they still require them to take a diploma in human sciences. And for those who join in other disciplines than Islamic studies, they have to take diploma in Islamic review knowledge. But somehow this, has not sustained. It was there for about 2 or 3 years, and then it was discontinued. I mean, it maybe became dead, discontinued. But now centrists have revived it. It was brought to the Senate, and this was going to be an internal degree, not based on MTU and all these things. So now the issue is how to package that so that many people can take the courses in a way that you have to do some flexibility in this, because otherwise it is difficult for lecturers to commit one day during the weekend, for example, and to complete this within a year. So it's like you have to sacrifice every Saturday to complete the program throughout the year. So in order to move forward, I think it must be the delivery must be adjusted. Nowadays we have because of our familiarity with online thing like Google Meet or Zoom and whatever, maybe certain things can be done in this regard. Maybe there can be some recordings, for example, and then assessment will be done differently. So these are the things that university, if the university management is serious, it is something that has to be done. Because if you just open it like that, only the interested will come. It's not going to, you cannot have many people coming, not many people will come in the end. But the idea of having some courses to be open, we have to know that, number one, the lecturers, if they want to follow the undergraduate courses in Islamic review knowledge, number one, the courses are taught in Arabic. So how many can follow the courses in Arabic? So it means that we have to have the courses to be taught in English, and the courses has to be maybe even more basic than what we give to our students in the IRK, because our students, they have gone through foundation. Most of our students have gone through the foundation. So the basic thing have been re-emphasized. They have studied during the school time, and then they came to foundation CFS, and they had more Islamic, and then they have intro to Islamic again, but that intro is not really intro. It's intro that is upon what has been put up in the foundation years. So now some of the lecturers, we need that basic thing. So if you ask me, if you ask my own opinion is to go back to the way of the ulama of the past. We start with small books. In Arabic, we call it matn. For example, like in Aqidah, you have very short matn, very short book, maybe 10 pages, 20 pages. like Al-Kharidah, for example. Very small book. But if you have a master teaching that, you get jewels. If you get somebody who do not really know the small things that the author put it there, it can be very bland, very bland. But if you have a master teaching that, you see ajaib. So this is the thing. If we want, I say that this is the way to go forward. So even basic text in, for example, in Tasawwuf, for example, the basic text in Tasawwuf sometimes is not even 50 pages, sometimes 30 pages. But the emphasis that, I mean, for those who went through this system is that, how do you apply that? How do you apply that? How do you apply that? It's not about the quality, the quantity, but the quality. Wallahu alam. So maybe, Allahu alam, maybe you can, the university management can consider this. But if you say what is the least, I say the basic thing: aqidah, akhlaq, fiqh, tafsir. Tafsir, of course, you cannot steal the whole Quran, but tafsir of the specific surah of the Quran, for example, we can take, let's say, Yasin. So everybody has to learn Yasin. Everybody in IUM has to learn Yasin, has to go through Yasin, for example, or Tabarak. It will create, a momentum. Allah Alam.
All right, thank you very much. I need to restructure again on the question here. So I believe that we should close. Okay, we will close the Q&A. With the last one here, I would like to celebrate one. There's been a hand raising there for quite some time there. So I would like to invite Brother Nasir. Brother Nasir, my teacher, would like to post a certain comment. Tafadhal.
Okay, thanks very much, Dr. Badri. I like your lecture. We have the same guru, Prof. Halim. Long time no see. So yeah, you look not quite well. Okay, straight to the point. I like your point on inspiring teachers, more important than curriculum. That one is really powerful. I think because we have the same teacher like Prof. Halim, I think just so inspired. Prof. Halim is so inspiring. And yeah, I think that this is the problem with us. We must set our I had an interview with I interviewed Freemason. Okay, just now I was talking about Masonic education. They grant me an interview, so I interviewed them. Why is it that Oxford University have a Masonic lodge? Within Oxford University itself, Apollo Lodge. You say why? The reason is that they say, it was telling me, is because that, you see, university, the job on university, the university, every university, whether it's Oxford, Cambridge, whatsoever, is subjected to bureaucracy, to politics. So a lot of political play and bureaucracy. You cannot run away. IUM, UM, we are subjected to MQA. That is the problem. And excuse me, foreign lecturers, so they have to think of how are we going to renew our contract if we go against the establishment so much? It's very, very difficult. And most of the students, when they come, they're thinking of work, job all the time. They're thinking of exam. You cannot run away from exam orientation. You cannot. That's the function of university, to produce graduates for the job market. That is number one function of university. You cannot deny that, even though we tend to be idealistic. So what happened is that Masonic education realizes this is a problem even in Oxford University. So therefore, they established Apollo Lodge, selected students who are really going for knowledge, and for life. Those who are going for knowledge are for lifelong learning. Lifelong learning. So they are going to be with the Masonic Education Lodge forever. But the question now is that, to what extent our university, IIUM, what they call, can bring together the alumni who really, really passionate in knowledge and contribute towards knowledge. Islamization of knowledge that cannot be done by lecturers alone. Cannot. It will be done by professors only. Sitting in the library, Islamization of knowledge will be dead, I'm telling you. It will not be realistic at all. You need our alumni out there who are working, who are on the field, at the grassroots. Then they can give the feedback. No, like, what's your problem with Islamization of knowledge? What's the problem with your curriculum? These are the people you should deal with. So I would say that to what extent do we collaborate with our thousands of alumni, IUM alumni? To what extent in the process of Islamization of knowledge?
I agree with you totally, my brother Nasir, because in one forum I expressed the same thing to the university. I said, we are talking about us being a forward-looking university and all this thing, but Al Azhar has Azhar TV. We don't have IM TV that has, lectures of the big ulamas that we have in our university. But in Al Azhar now, if under Azhar TV, if I want to read completely Sahih al-Bukhari from the end, from the beginning to the end, I have 700 recordings from one scholar. I can choose whether I have time or not. There are some lectures, one of my very influential lecturers when I was in Al Azhar, who taught me, rhetoric, Arabic rhetoric. Allah gave him a long life. Until now, he is teaching, and he has taught the book that I read he taught us. Of course, in the year, how much can he cover? He could not cover the whole thing, but even with the small portions that he managed to teach us, we are like Allahu Akbar. You see, but now 2 books of Abdul Qahir al-Jurjani. The main books is like the Kitab Sibawayh for Balagha. It has more than 200 recordings available for free. So I said, now, if I said to the university, what if we do this? We don't have to rely on just our lecturers. There are so many people who graduated who want to participate, because those who are on Azhar TV, some of them are not in Al Azhar right now, but they were graduates of Al Azhar. And the other thing that we have to, that's why sometimes they say you have to scan the environment under ISO. That one is true. You have to scan the environment. Now we say Azhar TV. Some graduates of Azhar, Malaysian graduates, they have re-established. Al-Azhar used to have the system that they call Ar-Riwaq. You have the systematic study and you have the Talaqi study for everybody. This is normally arranged in Riwaq, in sections. So you have the Magharibah section, the Moroccan section, the Jawi section, the Nusantara section, the what do you call the Sa'aidah section, those who come from the south. So they have established Ar-Riwaq al-Jawi, Ar-Ruwaq al-Jawi. And if you look at YouTube in Ar-Ruwaq al-Jawi, you have so many books being taught. Over 500 recordings now, and it's ongoing. So when is our university going to start? So Al-Azhar has started. This is a traditional Al-Azhar. People call it traditional Al-Azhar. Their graduates can set up Al-Riwaq. It's like mini Al-Azhar for the big Al-Azhar. All this. But if I want to set this up, I need the university has to come in to this. Otherwise, people say that okay, I can teach in front of this. I will do the recording. We say, oh, this is so common lah. I mean, command, command, not English command, so poor quality. At least the Azhar thing, even though they are not using animation or whatever, but the recording is high definition. The background is good.
I think our problem is not just secularism. Our problem is extreme bureaucratization of education. As Max Weber was saying, or Professor George Ritzer, even worse, McDonaldization of university, which is true. Actually, it's a problem, bureaucratization.
So one of the highly respected scholars in Nusantara, in our university, in our in our country, Sheikh Abdullah Fahim, and when he established Dairatul Ma'arif, the school in Kuala Batas, Seberang Perai, and Alhamdulillah, my grandfather was among the students of maybe third or fourth batches at that time. The school was set, you have they call it Nizami. So you have the organization of classes. Okay, you start with level 1, level 2, standard 1, standard 2, or form 1, form 2, and all this thing. But they also have Umumi, the one you mentioned, that whatever the lodge. So they have the Umumi. That is the system that was set for Al-Ma'had al-Mahmud, Maktab Mahmud, in because at the time the scholars they were both from Makkah, Sheikh Abdul Fahim and also the Sheikh al-Islam of Qadah. They have the same setup. So there is there is this lodge. So our university need to have that.
Islamic lodge.
Wallahu alam.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Abdul Razak, within 5 minutes, do you have any comments to respond to that? Thank you very much.
Well, I was waiting for Dr. Badri to say his concluding remarks. Then I well, I think the process of Islamization, I think we need to understand it as a lifelong process. To my understanding, I could be wrong. When I'm saying this, I'm saying it as how do I say, as a product of this, IIUM integration and Islamization of knowledge, especially the configuration that was done between human science and IRK in Islamic studies in IRKH, because I joined 1996, and then I did my master, my PhD in the same faculty. So as a child of what you call Islamization itself, I always see Islamization as a lifelong process. It's not something that we can do it within 2 or 3 or 5 years project. Yeah, we need to see results. Yes, maybe in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years. Yes, normally we want to measure our progress. We want to check our what do you call day-to-day, what do you call contributions that we're making. But we have to put in our mind, somewhere in our background, the background of our thinking, that this process is not something that we can do it today and that's it. Some people, they just quick judge and say, well, we have been talking about Islamization for some time. What is the point? Normally they put in that way, roughly. So my answer to them today always is, look, this is a lifelong process. As long as we are there to learn and then apply our knowledge in life, the process of Islamization will always be there. Why? Because number one, when you are learning is not going to end today or tomorrow or after tomorrow or 100 years if we are all alive. And as long as human beings are learning, yeah, then we need a guidance, to exclude the wrong and misconceptions from our mind. And as long as we have knowledge and we want to apply, then Islamization will also be there. So Islamization actually is not 1 year project, 10 years project, 1 decade project. No, it's a lifelong process. As long as there is a learning process, education, Islamization will remain there, whether we like it or not. And of course, it has so many dimensions. It has so many aspects. In one aspect, it could be like bringing the two subjects together. That's one aspect. and also letting the students, to learn. As I said in the beginning, the example that I give, if you have this student who was admiring and liking, mathematics, but his teacher is telling him stop, otherwise it's not good for your akhirah. If you want to do an akhirah, record, you have to go to IRK. We have to tell him, no, let the student do both. So we have to provide, that product to the student, whereby he can study now. And now he knows fiqh, which is very good. Yeah, we want our student to study fiqh and usul fiqh and law. But also we want him to fulfill his passion of mastering mathematics. Why? Because we need people like Al-Khwarizmi, who knows tafsir, to do the 3 ayat of Mirath, to found, to contribute in, because basically Al-Jabra was derived from his book, Kitab Al-Mukhtasar fi Hisab Al-Jabri wal-Muqabala, which was basically trying to understand how the fractions that are mentioned in the Quran, Sudus, Thumun, Thuluth, 1/3, 1/4, 2/3. He wanted to understand these fractional, terminologies that were being mentioned in Ilm al-Mirath. So thanks to him, because he contacted to the Quranic ayat and he was able to interpret them. And alhamdulillah, now today we're enjoying with Al-Jabra. So we want faqih who is also a mathematician. We want alim of usuluddin and da'wah and philosophy, Islamic philosophy, who is also good in, physics and chemistry as well. So why we want to limit ourselves to, only one subject and accept as if, this dichotomy or this separation between these two fields are acceptable, and therefore no, I think we have to come out from that. Therefore, I think the future belongs to those who work hard to those subjects which are multidisciplinary in nature. And I think it is not only us now calling for this. It's not only IIUM, it's not only IIIT, it's not only the great ulama who are working, the Muslim ulama who are now calling for multidisciplinary approach to education, but also in the West now they are realizing the challenge of this dichotomy, because they are producing scientists who are now, has nothing to do with the spirit or with religion and with the value system. So multidisciplinary approach to education is something that it has to happen, and it has to be the case. That's my conclusion. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. With that conclusion, I thank Dr. Badri as well as Dr. Abdul Razak for the wonderful thoughts and for sharing of different practices from even other universities as well as internally and externally as well. I would like to thank the participants as well for the question and answer. I'm sorry that few comments I'm not able to actually elaborate on that inside the forum here due to the limitation of time. And that's it. I will pass this floor again to Brother Zakwan, our MC. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Brother Shamsuddin bin Abdullah. My brothers and sisters, before we end our morning session today, I have several housekeeping announcements to be made. For your information, this talk session is available to be watched both via Zoom and the CFS YouTube channel live. And to all IIM staff, please do not forget to register your attendance. And to all participants, please be reminded that this evening session, which involves all the presenters, will start at 2:30 p.m. And now is already 1 p.m. We will have a break for Zuhur prayer and lunch. Thus, let us postpone our morning session today with the recitation of Tasbih Kafarah and Surah Al-Asr.
Assalamualaikum. That's all, right?
Thank you,
Shukran jazeelan.
Brother Abdul Razak.
Thank
Nice
you
to
very
meet
much.
you.